Chapter 872. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. In October, the first snow fell in Sangshua Pass. At night, Feng Wuxiu wore a thick cloak and held a hand warmer in both hands as he paced back and forth in the snow outside the tent. He glanced at the entrance of the camp from time to time. The attendant walked up worriedly and said, "Master, it's windy outside. You should go into the tent and warm yourself." Sangshua Pass was cold. When he spoke, his breath was white and the wind hurt when it blew on his face. Feng Wuxiu sighed. "I'm not going in. I want to wait for my brother." The attendant quickly said, "Eldest young master will be fine." Feng Wuxiu blamed himself. "If I had known, I wouldn't have craved the mutton buns." His brother took 3 years to get home from the mountain, and 3 months to get out of the forest. This time, he got lost halfway. He did not know when he would reunite with them again. The attendant laughed dryly. "Well, you just said it casually. Who would have thought that eldest young master would not sleep in the middle of the night and run off to buy you buns?" It was a long story. On the way, they met a famous bun shop. Because the business was so good, the bun would be sold out the moment it opened. Taoist Qingfeng waited in front of the bun shop in the middle of the night, so that his brother could eat the buns. Then there was no then. Feng Wuxiu had a mission to negotiate, and could not wait for his brother. He could only leave a few guards to search the area while he followed Prince Changsun to Sangshua Pass. Feng Wuxiu continued, "Also, I shouldn't have swapped missions with Wang Su. If I went to Chishui Pass, I wouldn't have bumped into that bun shop. If I hadn't bumped into it, I wouldn't have craved it." The attendant said, "Chishui Pass has crispy duck. It's crispy and fried with honey and sesame. It's delicious." Feng Wuxiu swallowed his saliva. "What flavor?" The attendant was speechless. In another tent, a handsome man wearing a silver fox cloak sat in front of a small table. He picked up a pen with his slender fingers and dipped it in ink to write a letter. 2 muffled groans came from outside, and the air was filled with the warm smell of blood. Not long after, Long Yi carried his long sword which was wiped clean with ice and snow and entered the tent. "It's the 13th wave, right?" Xiao Heng said calmly. "Jin's state is really persistent." As soon as the news of the Emperor Sun Dong negotiating for peace spread, the Jin nation attached great importance to it. Along the way, Jin nation continuously sent experts to assassinate him for 3 purposes. First, destroy the peace talks with the Chun nation. Secondly, he could use the death of the emperor's grandson to suppress the morale of the Yin army. Third, cut off the possibility of using the state of Chen to deal with the state of Zhao. Long Yi sat cross-legged beside him. Xiao Heng turned his head and brushed the snowflakes off his shoulders. Long Yi was very quiet. He didn't make any noise and allowed his little master to approach him. There were not many people who could get so close to the sky splitter. The memory related to Heaven Splitter seemed to be gradually awakening, and the expression of Long Yi and his aura were also undergoing subtle changes. Xiao Heng felt as if he was losing Long Yi, but he didn't stop Long Yi from recovering his memories. He asked, "Long Yi, the letter I asked you to deliver to the Qin nation's military camp, did you deliver it to that person?" Long Yi nodded. Although he still couldn't speak, Long Yi was no longer unable to communicate with others like before. Xiao Heng smiled with relief. "Long Yi, it's time to learn how to read." The sky was just beginning to brighten. Outside the Blue Snow Pass, the Yin army had set up a temporary tent in an open space at the border. To express his sincerity, Xiao Heng had been waiting in the tent for a long time. The time written on the letter he asked Long Yi to deliver was 7:15 in the morning. However, the appointed person didn't arrive until 7:15 in the morning. The other party was wearing a purple mink cloak. He had a strong figure, wheat-colored skin, resolute facial features, and a pair of smiling eyes. He was the former hostage of the Zhao nation, Yuan Tang. Now he was the crown prince of the Chen nation. Yuan Tang entered the tent with a smile. He took off his cloak and threw it to the accompanying eunuch. Looking at Xiao Lulang, he said, "Oh, I was wondering who it was. It turns out to be Lord Xiao. Long time no see. I trust you have been well since we last met. Xiao Heng had already stated his identity on the letter. Xiao Heng raised his hand and motioned for him to sit down. Yuan Tang sat down opposite Xiao Heng and calmly narrowed his eyes. Xiao Lulang, what's going on? Aren't you from the Zhao nation? Why did you go to the Yan nation as an envoy? I heard that the eldest grandson of the Yan nation wants to negotiate with the Chen nation. Why don't I see him? In the tent, other than the two of them, there were also Long Yi, a eunuch, and 2 men of sacrifice from the Chen nation. Xiao Heng calmly said, I am the eldest grandson of the great Yan nation. Yuan Tang was stunned. The eunuch beside Xiao Heng poured tea for Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang raised his hand and motioned for him to withdraw. The eunuch bowed and retreated behind Xiao Heng. Yuan Tang stared at Xiao Heng without blinking and sized him up from top to bottom for a long time. Xiao Lulang, are you playing with me? You are clearly. Xiao Heng calmly said. My name is Xiao Heng. Xiao Lulang is my temporary identity. My father is the Marquis Xianping of the Zhao nation. My mother is the Princess of Xinyang. My birth mother is the Crown Princess of Great Yan. Yuan Tang opened his mouth wide. The amount of information was too much for him to digest. Horizontal was a knife, vertical was also a knife. Either way, he would be shocked. It was better to shock him all at once. Xiao Heng didn't hesitate and continued. Jiao Jiao has already been adopted by the Duke of Anghua of Great Yan. She is the future successor of the Duke of Anghua. She is also the newly appointed commander of Black Wind Cavalry. This time, she will follow the Crown Princess to battle. If you must fight, then fight with us. Jiao Jiao said that you once owed her a favor. She wrote you a personal letter. As Xiao Heng spoke, he took out a letter from his wide sleeve and placed it on the small table in front of the two. Yuan Tang was about to reach out to take it, but Xiao Heng pressed his hand down on the letter. Yuan Tang looked at Xiao Heng in confusion. Xiao Heng said seriously, I came to talk to you, not because I have this letter. You can still owe Jiao Jiao a favor. I came to make a deal with you. Oh. Yuan Tang smiled and slowly withdrew his hand. What kind of deal do you want to make with this prince? This prince will say the ugly words in advance. This prince doesn't believe a single word you said just now. You are Xiao Lulang, not the grandson of Great Yan's emperor. Xiao Heng nodded. Very well. I'm not making a deal with you as the grandson of Great Yan's emperor. Yuan Tang had been shocked again and again today. He had no idea what Xiao Lulang was planning. He sneered and said, Don't tell me you want your loyalists to capture me and use me as a hostage to blackmail the Qin kingdom? Xiao Heng said, There are too many people in the Qin kingdom's imperial court who want you dead. If I really capture you, they would be more than happy to see you die in my hands. Why would they be blackmailed by me? Yuan Tang's smile froze. Your position as the crown prince is not stable. When your uncle Rong Yao helped Prince Bo plot a rebellion, it was you who personally brought an imperial edict to arrest him. Although he died at the hands of Prince Bo, didn't he also die at your hands? The Rong clan has long been in harmony with you. Forgive me for being blunt, but the one who is truly suffering from internal and external troubles is you. Yuan Tang said. That's why I have to win this war and get enough wealth from the Yan kingdom. Xiao Heng asked, Do you really think you have extra energy to deal with the Yan kingdom? Yuan Tang looked at him strangely. What do you mean? Xiao Heng sighed regretfully. The army of Zhao Kingdom has arrived at the western border of the Qin Kingdom. If we and Zhao Kingdom start a war against the Qin Kingdom at the same time, I don't know if the Qin Kingdom can withstand it. When I say we, I mean Zhao Kingdom, Yan Kingdom, and Zhao Kingdom. Yuan Tang frowned. You, Xiao Heng said calmly. If you don't believe me, you can go back and wait. I promise you, in less than 3 days, the news of the Zhao Kingdom's army arriving at the city will be delivered to you by your spies. Yuan Tang clenched his fingers and said coldly, Zhao Kingdom won't help you. Besides, Zhao Kingdom didn't have the guts to do so. Xiao Heng smiled faintly. It's a long journey for Zhao Kingdom to attack the Yan Kingdom. The loss outweighs the gain. How can it be faster than directly dividing your neighboring kingdom? Besides, Zhao Kingdom already believes that Zhao Kingdom and the Yan Kingdom will send troops to attack the Qin Kingdom. So, you don't have to worry that they don't have the guts to take a share of the loot. Yuan Tang said sarcastically. How can they believe that? Xiao Heng said calmly. Young Master Gu family army of Zhao Kingdom and Mr. Meng, the chess saint of 6 kingdoms, have already sneaked into Zhao Kingdom. I think these 2 people are enough to gain the trust of Zhao Kingdom. When Yuan Tang heard this, he couldn't keep calm anymore. You, don't go too far. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Xiao Heng sighed. Actually, it doesn't matter whether I'm the eldest grandson of the emperor or not. What matters is that I can prevent the Qin Kingdom from being attacked by the other 3 kingdoms. Make your choice, Prince of Qin Kingdom. Yuan Tang slapped the table. Xiao Lulang, you're looting a burning house. Does Jiao Jiao know that you're so despicable? Xiao Heng didn't even lift his eyelids. You'd better think about how to deal with the attack of the other 3 kingdoms. As he spoke, he stood up slowly and walked out of the tent. When he was at the door, he stopped, as if he suddenly thought of something, and said pleasantly, but if you're willing to cooperate with me, I can guarantee that I'll share the Jin Kingdom with you. Jin Kingdom? Yuan Tang was stunned again. Let Yuan Tang fall into a desperate situation first, and then draw a big picture for Yuan Tang. No one could withstand it. And as long as Yuan Tang agreed to join the Yan Kingdom, it would be much easier to deal with the Zhao Kingdom. Your Majesty of the Zhao Kingdom, if you're not willing to accept the negotiation, then the Yan Kingdom, the Zhao Kingdom, and the Qin Kingdom can only declare war on you. The Qin Kingdom won't help you. The Yan Kingdom can't even take care of itself. How can they fight us? This is a letter from the Prince of the Qin Kingdom. He has agreed to form an alliance with the Yan Kingdom. As for the Yan Kingdom, Xuyang City has sent news of victory, and the Liang Kingdom has surrendered, taking down the Zhao Kingdom and the Qin Kingdom without losing a single soldier. This is called subduing the enemy's troops without fighting. Digression, it's the last day of the month. Little cuties, hurry up and vote. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/105406809. HTML Genius memorized the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile version reading website. Chapter 873. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. The key to this peace talk was Yuan Tang. The premise of taking down the 2 countries was based on Yuan Tang's agreement to the peace talk. If Yuan Tang refused, then things would not go well in Zhao State. Will Yuan Tang's Crown Prince of Qin State agree? After Yuan Tang left, an old general accompanying him in the tent asked. Xiao Heng flipped through the report on the table. Find a way to send the report of Xuyang City's victory to Qin State. If there was no news of Liang State's defeat, it might be a little tricky. But now it was foolproof. Yuan Tang was an ambitious crown prince. He was not willing to be a puppet crown prince, so he urgently needed to make military achievements and establish his reputation in the imperial court, the army, and the people. But if he was destined to lose, then Yuan Tang's risk would be the last hurdle to destroy Yuan Tang. Prince Changsun. A guard's voice came from outside the door. His tone was obviously a little strange. Xiao Heng understood and said, "Come in." The guard led a man dressed as a cook into the tent. The man had been here once before, so Xiao Heng and the old general were not unfamiliar with him. The 2 looked at him. He cupped his hands and bowed, saying in standard Yan State language, "Prince Changsun of the Great Yan State, my master wants to ask you, what do you think? My master can give what the Crown Prince can give, and what the Crown Prince can't give, my master can give." Xiao Heng said without hesitation, "I'm not interested in the internal strife of Qin State. If you have the ability, let your crown prince be the crown prince of Chun State first. The cook smiled. Your Highness, do you really think that Yuan Tang's crown prince will agree? Even if he agrees, he won't be able to achieve anything. I'm afraid he will drag Yin State down. Xiao Heng said casually. I only know that he became the crown prince, but your crown prince didn't. His words caused the cook's face to turn red. Naturally, he was not a real cook. Instead, he was a subordinate of the Chun State's second prince. He rushed up angrily and said sarcastically, I think your Yin kingdom has been too arrogant for too long. Do you really think that you can defeat Jin and Liang by joining forces with a few inferior countries? What an idiotic dream. Your country of Yin has been besieged on all sides. My Highness is willing to cooperate with you, which is giving you face. A wise man submits to circumstances. Don't think too highly of yourself in the Yin kingdom. The old general unsheathed his sword and stood up with a murderous aura. You bastards! How dare you disrespect the eldest grandson of the great Yin emperor? The cook trembled in fear. Xiao Heng said faintly, Forget it, General Fu. After all, he is not from the Yin kingdom. It's not up to us to punish him. I'll have to trouble General Fu to make a trip personally, and send this person to the Chun nation's crown prince. It just so happened that he brought the news of Ziyang City's victory to them. 2 birds with 1 stone. Xiao Heng was a person who did good deeds without leaving his name behind. However, he could not do that in the political arena. He could not hide his kindness to his allies. He must let Yuan Tang know everything that was beneficial to Yuan Tang. The man was shocked. How dare you? The old general chopped him to the ground with a hand knife and tied him up with a rope. Xiao Heng said faintly, You all think that the Yin kingdom is going to fall. You can't wait to ride on our heads. Go back and tell your masters that the Yin kingdom will win this war. Pu City. After a fierce battle, the Black Wind Cavalry and the Dark Shadow Division successfully broke through the South City Gate. The Yin Kingdom's flag once again fluttered above their own land. The soldiers of the garrison battalion were very excited. Who said that the garrison battalion could not fight? Didn't they break through the South City Gate? Zhao Dingfeng fell on his butt and sat on the ground. He said breathlessly, Those bastards from the Han family are so damn tough. It was an indisputable fact that the Han family's warhorses were strong. They and the Dark Shadow Division had fought with all their strength and lives. They had used their unyielding belief and fighting spirit to kill those troublesome fellows. I'm so tired. Zhao Dingfeng said breathlessly. Li Shen supported his body with a knife and glanced at him coldly. He said while panting, Who told you to indulge in debauchery and waste your energy? Zhao Dingfeng was not happy. Hey, you're accusing me wrongly. When did I indulge in debauchery? Didn't I just do it for others to see? You're such a stubborn person. So what if you agree with the Han family? You spend the Han family's money to do your own thing, and then stab the Han family in the back. This is so King annoying. When he and Li Shun left the military camp around the same time, the Han family wanted them to go underground and secretly contact the old subordinates of the Xianyuan family for them. Li Shun did not agree and said that he would not let the Xianyuan family down in this life. Then he left without taking a single copper coin. Zhao Dingfeng was much more tactful. Wenren Chong glanced at the two and said seriously, You two stop arguing. Han Yi has escaped. Besides, there are 20,000 Han family soldiers in the city. They should be under the command of the 4th Master Han. Our mission is not finished yet. I know. Zhao Dingfeng smiled. He quickly recovered his strength and mounted his horse in high spirits. Bastards of the Han family, your grandpa Zhao is here. Li Shen frowned. Can you not talk like the young commander? Zhao Dingfeng said. I just want to learn. You sound so arrogant. Wenren Chong looked around. Wait, where is the young commander? Li Shen said. He was on the gate tower. They looked up at the same time, but Gu Jiao's figure was long gone. The 3 of them looked at each other, and an ominous premonition surged in their hearts at the same time. Wenren Chong's eyes turned cold. Not good. It's a trap. Go to the gate tower. Ha 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 ha. We've been tricked. Yulioi's bell-like laughter came from the gate tower. She didn't run away at all. Instead, She hid in the dark room of the gate tower through a special mechanism. Now there was another guest in the dark room. Yu Liuyi looked up with a smile and looked at Gu Jiao, who was standing on a wooden cross. She said with an innocent face, "You are the Black Wind Cavalry's commander? You look very young, but you dared to hurt me. I have to ask you for a little compensation." It all started when Gu Jiao went up the gate tower. After she put the Yin Kingdom's flag on the roof, she inadvertently heard an unusual noise under the roof. She went into the house and released the kidnapped civilian, but it ended up like this. The floorboards suddenly retreated, leaving only 2 floating planks that crossed under her feet, barely supporting her. She couldn't jump out, climb up, or walk down because she was surrounded by a cage made of the Snow Domain's heavenly silkworm silk. There were hundreds of heavenly silks. Even if she had the silver silk gloves, she couldn't destroy so many heavenly silks in an instant. If she tried to break in, the most likely result would be her body being cut up, leaving only her hands intact. Yu Liuyi said with a smile, "What's the point of saving a cheap civilian's life? Yu Yin Kingdom's generals are too soft-hearted." Gu Jiao said, "This is not soft-hearted. Unfortunately, people like you will never understand." She wasn't a normal person either. Every day, she endured the torture of slaughter chi. But her godfather said that sometimes people don't bully the weak because they are soft-hearted, but a strong person must have their own pride. Strong people don't live to bully, they live to protect. Yu Liuyi said with a smile, "I don't understand, but I won't be as stupid as your Yin Kingdom's generals. You, the 7 sons of Xianyuan, and that Xianyuan Qi. You are all people who shed blood for a group of lowly civilians. I am only loyal to my lord. Aya, exchanging a civilian for the life of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander, it's worth it." Yu Liuyi sat in a hanging basket. After she finished speaking, she waved at Gu Jiao. "Goodbye, Black Wind Cavalry's commander." She snapped her fingers, and the person at the bottom activated the mechanism. Her hanging basket slowly moved down, and finally entered a dark room underground. The mechanism above Gu Jiao's head also began to turn. It was a huge winch, and it was above the heavenly silks. Every time the winch turned, the heavenly silks would tighten towards Gu Jiao. "Young commander." It was Zhao Dongfeng's voice. The 3 of them found the room on the tower. They saw Gu Jiao standing on 2 planks, and her feet were in the air. This was too dangerous. The 3 of them rushed forward without any explanation, wanting to save Gu Jiao. "Don't come over," Gu Jiao said. The 3 of them stopped in their tracks. Gu Jiao said, "There's heavenly silks of the heavenly silks." The 3 of them blocked the light, so they could not see. They scattered to the side, and with the light and angle, they could see the intertwined threads in the room. There was actually so much heavenly silks of the heavenly silks. The 3 of them were stunned. The planks under her feet were very narrow, so Gu Jiao had to maintain perfect balance to not let herself fall. She gently placed the red tasseled spear on the planks, and slowly took out the heavenly silk's gloves and put them on. She wanted to try and tear a hole, but when she moved one of the threads, the winch increased its strength and turned twice. The heavenly silks of the heavenly silks tightened around her by an inch. Hiss! One of the red tasseled red tasseled spear was cut off. Wenren stared. "Winch! Stop the winch!" The problem was, how could they stop the winch? They tried to use weapons and hidden weapons, but before they could touch the winch, the heavenly silks of the heavenly silks were cut into pieces. Ha! The winch turned again, and a small piece of the plank was cut off. When the plank was completely cut, Gu Jiao would fall and be cut into pieces by the heavenly silks of the heavenly silks of the heavenly silks below. "What should we do?" Zhao Dingfeng asked. Wenren frowned. "We can only do it from the roof. You 2 go up to the roof, and I will tell you what to do." The 2 of them nodded, and used their qinggong to go up to the roof. Wenren stood at the door, and stared at the winch's position. "A little to the right, yes, that tile. Take it away, and be careful not to trigger the mechanism." The 2 of them carefully took away the tile on the roof, and finally saw the winch below. Li Shen pulled out his long sword, and stabbed it down, and it was stuck in the shaft of the winch. Success! Zhao Dingfeng let out a long sigh of relief. As soon as his voice fell, a caw sound was heard. The winch was so strong that it broke Li Shun's long sword. To make matters worse, the spinning speed of the winch began to increase abruptly. The Snowland Heavenly Silkworm silk came from all directions, cutting towards Gu Jiao. Wenren Cheng felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Zhao Dingfeng, where is your sword? Zhao Dingfeng broke out in cold sweat. The capstan is spinning too fast. I can't get it in. Wenren Cheng shouted. Even if you can't get in, you still have to get in. The young commander will lose his life. Zhao Dingfeng was so anxious that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. I want to too. I really can't get stuck. It's over, it's really over. The snow domain Heavenly Silkworm silk was about to encircle them. Bang! A sharp sword chi pierced through the air from behind the two of them, sending them flying away in a domineering manner. Even half of the roof was blown away. When Rinchong was standing at the door of the room, he was unable to open his eyes due to the sudden burst of smoke, dust, and debris. Little commander! Li Shin shouted. A stalwart figure descended from the sky and knelt on one knee on the beam of the house. Holding the black iron longsword with both hands, he swung it down viciously and blocked the spinning capstan. Everyone broke out in cold sweat. They looked at the expert who had appeared in the sky in disbelief. Wasn't this the old man who had been guarding the little commander's tent for the past few days, and forbade anyone from visiting the unconscious little commander? They had heard that he had gone to Pu City to gather information. He looked quite old. How could his martial arts be so strong? Gu Jiao looked up at the old marquis who had descended from the sky. So it was my sworn brother. My sworn brother was so powerful. Give me your mysterious power. The old marquis ignored the glances of his brothers. He found the mechanism under the capstan, and removed the snow domain Heavenly Silkworm silk around Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao, who had no idea that she had already fallen off the horse, picked up the red tasseled spear on the wooden board, and reached out her hand to the old marquis. Pull me up. The old marquis looked at this impudent little girl who had teased him. He was so angry that he couldn't vent his anger. He had nothing better to do than to take care of this little girl. Wasn't she quite capable? Come up if you have the ability. If you can't do it, throw him down. He would take care of her again. He wasn't Gu Chao. Gu Jiao pointed to her little foot. She had sprained her ankle. Half an hour later, the old marquis expressionlessly carried Gu Jiao down the city gate tower. Digression, the last few hours, the tickets have been cleared. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1053999170. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 874. The latest chapter is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that could not be found online are all available here. After the South Gate was broken, the Han family members were defeated and fled. The Jin army did not send reinforcements. Indeed, the Jin army did not care about the Han family members, but the final reason was that the other 3 gates were also under attack. Marquis Xianping stole the advanced siege weapons from the Liang people, which made the situation worse for the Jin army. The Jin army had the geographical advantage, and could defend the city with half of their forces. Now they had to go all out. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when Gu Jiao was successfully rescued. The people that were rescued by Gu Jiao were taken away by Wenren Cheng. He found a cavalry to send them to a nearby hospital. The rest were on standby, waiting for the next mission. The old marquis placed Gu Jiao on a small stone by the street. The Black Wind King came over and sniffed her. Gu Jiao was about to say, "I'm fine," when she glanced at the old marquis and patted him. Wenren Cheng and the other 2 walked over. Zhao Dingfeng looked at Gu Jiao and asked, Little commander, are you okay? Gu Jiao took out a small book and wrote, I'm fine. The three frowned. What happened? Why did she write? Did her throat go hoarse? The old marquis put his hands behind his back and stood to the side with a cold face. There was an unknown anger in his heart that he could not vent. After coming to the Yan kingdom for so long, he had learned a lot of the Yan language. He could understand simple words and speak a little. He heard the three old subordinates of the Xianyuan family mention a name, Han Yi. I'll go catch him. Li Shen said. I'll go. Zhao Dingfeng said. Your arm is injured. Let the doctor bandage it for you. Li Shen looked at his left arm and said, It's just a small injury. Wenren Chong said, You two stay here and guard the city. Lord Zhou and I will go and capture them. The old marquis opened his mouth and hesitated for a moment. Then he spoke in the language of the Yan kingdom that was not very standard. Is that Han Yi in his 20s? Is he very young? The three of them nodded in unison. Yes. The old marquis pointed to an alley not far away. Is the person tied up inside the alley the one you want to catch? Zhao Dingfeng hurriedly ordered 2 cavalrymen to carry the unconscious man out of the alley. The few of them took a closer look. Who else could it be but Han Yi? Zhao Dingfeng's mouth twitched. You know Han Yi? The old marquis replied. I don't know him. I thought he was a deserter. Everyone. Gu Jiao nodded seriously and gave the old marquis a thumbs up. Big brother, as expected of you. Old marquis. All right, Han Yi had been dealt with, but things weren't over yet. Zhao Dingfeng angrily said. There's still 1 more month, Lu Yi. The mechanism just now was set up by her. She almost killed the young commander. I must catch her. I'll tear her to pieces. When the 3 of them arrived at the gate tower, although they didn't see you Lu Yi, they heard her arrogant and vicious voice. The few of them were very angry at her. She was so young, but she was so vicious. They had to kill her quickly. Otherwise, who knew how many people she would harm if she was left alive? Wenren Chong said, There seems to be a mechanism under the gate tower. Let's go look for it later. The old marquis was silent for a moment before speaking again. Maybe there's no need. The few of them looked at him in unison. Zhao Dingfeng asked in a daze, You didn't catch her too, did you? No, the old marquis said. The 3 of them let out a long sigh of relief. That's right. You Lu Yi had just left and you appeared. How could you catch her in such a short time? You didn't give the experts a chance to live at all. The old marquis said. I just activated the mechanism in the underground house. She should be trapped inside now. The 3 of them. The old marquis had been gathering information in Puff City these past few days, but he hadn't infiltrated the army camp or the city lord's mansion. Instead, he had followed a few suspicious soldiers to a gambling house outside the mansion. Yu Lui had taken over the gambling house and turned it into a den for her to test out medicine and mechanisms. The old marquis had set his sights on Yu Lui. In the past few days he had followed Yu Lui's tracks and investigated all of the mechanisms she had set up in Puff City. Then where do we go in? Zhao Dingfeng asked. The old marquis pointed in a direction. It's behind that door. Yu Lui was a dangerous person. The 3 of them didn't let anyone else do the work, and went to investigate the situation themselves. In the end they really did find the secret room, and saw Yu Lui pressed to the ground by a huge jack. Yu Lui's leg bones had been crushed and several of her ribs had been broken. Her dantian had been destroyed and she had spat out a mouthful of blood. She probably never dreamed that she would be destroyed by the mechanism she had set up. The next step was to formulate the next step of the plan. The Han family still had 20,000 soldiers in the city, and the old marquis didn't agree to chase after them. The old marquis said, It's easy to take down the south gate, and it's also easy to break the defense. If the Jin army finds that they are no match for them, and wants to retreat from the south gate, what do you plan to do? Do you plan to let them go, or defend the gate? That's right. After all, this wasn't Jin's territory. The Jin army wouldn't defend it at all costs. At most, they would retreat. It seemed that they couldn't move the soldiers here. Gu Jiao took out a small notebook and wrote, Big brother is still the experienced one. He's considerate. Her handwriting wasn't good, but her proud tone was overflowing. The old Marquis turned his face away coldly. Gu Jiao touched her chin. Big Brother's mood wasn't good? The officers and soldiers of the Dark Wind Battalion and the Dark Shadow Battalion were resting and reorganizing on the spot. Zhou Ren led his subordinates to set up camp and clean up the battlefield. Zhang Shiyong went to organize and deal with the prisoners of war. When Ren Chong and the other two returned to their respective posts to repair the armor, cook the food, and chop firewood. Gu Jiao sat on a stone stool outside the tent and looked at the new intelligence sent by the scouts. The old Marquis sat opposite her and looked at her coldly. She was wearing armor and a helmet. Her face was dirty and she looked like a tomboy. The old Marquis's eyes were cold. He began to shake his legs. After shaking his right leg, he shook his left leg. After shaking his left leg, he changed his posture and continued to shake his legs. Gu Jiao was lost in thought. From time to time, she would come up with a strategy in her mind. The old Marquis crossed his arms. After a while, Gu Jiao still didn't look over. He stood up and walked in front of Gu Jiao. His tall and strong figure shrouded Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was slightly stunned. "Who thinks I'm naked?" grumbled Gu Jiao's stomach grumbled. She saw the brocade pouch at the old Marquis's waist. It emitted a tempting fragrance. The old Marquis looked at her drooling face and frowned. He took off the brocade pouch at his waist and threw it to her. There were a few pieces of crispy candy and walnuts in the pouch. Gu Jiao didn't eat much crispy candy. She took out the walnuts. When a normal girl took a walnut, she would hand it to her grandfather delicately and say shyly, "The walnuts are too hard. I can't open them. Grandfather, please help me open them." But this girl, she directly grabbed 2 walnuts and smashed them on her helmet with a bang. The image of Jiao Jiao's little granddaughter in the old Marquis's mind was smashed. He shivered and looked at Gu Jiao in disbelief. Gu Jiao handed the opened walnuts to him. "Here, do you want to eat?" The old Marquis was speechless. On the other side, after Liao Chun and Taoist Qingfeng parted ways, he used his lightness skill to come to the mayor's mansion. He came to kill Gong Sunyu. But when he sneaked into the mayor's mansion and searched carefully, he couldn't find any trace of Gong Sunyu. He stood on the roof and frowned at the mayor's mansion, which was obviously less guarded, and said to himself, "Strange, where did Gong Sunyu go?" "Your Highness, be careful." In a small cowshed outside Pu City, Mu Qingchen reached out to support Shang Guanyan, who almost stepped on air. Shang Guanyan steadied her body and calmed down, saying, "I'm fine." Mu Qingchen said, "It just rained." The entrance of the tunnel is leaking water, and the road is slippery. Please be careful. This tunnel was the route that Xian Yuanqi took with Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan. When they came out, Xian Yuanqi didn't activate the mechanism, so they could go a second time. Gu Jiao drew a detailed map. Pu City was surrounded by battles. The Crown Princess took Mu Qingchen and a group of experts to the tunnel to meet with Shang Guanqing. Mu Qingchen took the lead. The group of people held torches and walked down the tunnel. The last person closed the wooden door on the ground. The tunnel was wet. After a few steps, Shang Guanyan's shoes were wet. She didn't care about this little discomfort. Her heart was full of her son. It had been a day and a night. How was the situation in Ghost Mountain? At this time, the battle at the south gate had begun, and the east gate would be soon. She didn't know if Gong Sunyu had sent someone to ask Jie Xingzhou to withdraw. They shouldn't know that the Great Yan's imperial grandson was trapped under Ghost Mountain. They wouldn't insist on withdrawing, right? If Jie Xingzhou really didn't withdraw, then this tunnel was the only hope to save them. Qing'er, you must hold on. Mother is coming to save you. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1053833817. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 875. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Shang Guanyin hasn't been to Ghost Mountain, and Mu Qingchen hasn't. Among the people who accompanied them, there was a native of Pu City. However, he only knew the road above ground and knew nothing about the underground passage. When they came in, they felt dizzy. The group came to a fork in the road, and there were passages on both sides. Now which way should we go? Shang Guanyin asked. Mu Qingchen raised the lantern, looked at the sheepskin map in his hand, and said, right. No matter how well Gu Jiao wrote, the map was very standard, and there was nothing confusing about it. Mu Qingchen continued to walk in the front, and Shang Guanyin was anxious to see her son, so she followed closely behind. After walking for a while, Mu Qingchen noticed that her breathing was not right. He stopped and turned to look at her. Your Highness, are you okay? Shang Guanyin wiped the cold sweat on her forehead, shook her head and said, I'm fine, just a little bit out of breath. Mu Qingchen looked up, looked around and softly explained, this kind of underground passage should be equipped with vents, but because of the rain, some of the vents may be blocked by silt. They were men and martial artists, so it wasn't too difficult for them to breathe. Shang Guanyin was different. She was a woman and she was injured. Mu Qingchen looked at the map and said to Shang Guanqing, Your Highness, hold on for a while. After walking for a while, the passage will open up, and it won't be so stuffy. Shang Guanyin clutched her chest and nodded. The group walked for a while, and the narrow passage really became much more spacious, allowing two people to walk side by side. Shang Guanyin's breathing gradually became better, and her mind became clearer. She began to look and think about the passage. She sincerely sighed. I really don't know who built such a long passage, directly from Ghost Mountain to outside Pu City? Mu Qingchen agreed. Yes, it's really shocking. The Ministry of Works of the Imperial Court was in charge of water conservancy, agriculture, and engineering, but they couldn't build such a marvelous tunnel. More importantly, why did they build such a tunnel? If it was from the city lord's manor or the army camp, it could be said that it was a convenient route for the army to retreat. However, Ghost Mountain was a desolate place. He really couldn't figure out why the passageway was built there. It was as if someone had predicted the disaster on Ghost Mountain and built a tunnel to save them. Mu Qingchen shook his head. He had fought too many battles recently and was possessed. What kind of nonsense was this? He did not speak of strange forces and chaotic spirits. He focused on finding the way and saving His Highness Zhongsun as soon as possible. The tunnel was extremely dark. They couldn't tell how much time had passed, but they had finally reached the last tunnel on the map. Mu Qingchen said, Your Highness, we'll enter the cave at the back of the mountain after we turn right. That's where General Xianyuan Qi used to live. He also knew about Xianyuan Qi and his son. Good. Shang Guanyin touched the armor on her waist. Mu Qingchen noticed her careless movement and said, I forgot that Your Highness is still injured. Why don't Your Highness rest here for a while? I'll go take a look first. Shang Guanyin said, My injury has already healed. It's just that I haven't walked so far, so my waist is a little sore. She couldn't wait to see her son, and didn't want to sit in the same place. Mu Qingchen couldn't stop her, and could only let her go. They soon arrived at the cave at the back of the mountain. Saving people was more important, so they didn't stay for long. They directly followed the instructions on Gu Jiao's map, pressed the mechanism on the stone wall, and entered another tunnel. Mu Qingchen said, Lulang said that this place is very close to the village. We should be able to hear the movements of the Jin army. Shang Guanyin listened carefully. But it's very quiet up there. Mu Qingchen nodded. Yes. Shang Guanyin frowned. Have they already withdrawn? Mu Qingchen analyzed. This is also possible. Just now, when we were in the cave at the back of the mountain, I observed the sky. It's getting late. If Lulang moves quickly, he would have already taken the south gate. General Wang Man and General Chang Wei should also be fighting against the east and west gates. Although the north gate is far away, General Xiao and Swordsman Tang should be here soon. Besieged on all sides, it was difficult for the Jin army not to withdraw their troops from Ghost Mountain. In another small cave that could accommodate more than a dozen people, Mu Qingchen stopped. "What's wrong?" Sheng Guanyin asked. Mu Qingchen looked at the wall in front of him, and then at the parchment in his hand, and said, "There should be a passage here according to the map, but now it's gone." Sheng Guanyin asked, "Did something happen that caused the passage to be closed?" After that, the wall in front of him slowly moved, and the stone door was opened. A familiar figure came out. Sheng Guanyan's eyes lit up. Qing. Sheng Guanqing was dressed in a plain white brocade robe, clean and neat, handsome and elegant. The mask on his face had been taken off, revealing a handsome face that was almost the same as Xiaohang's. There was a charming mole under his right eye. Even if their faces were the same, Sheng Guanyin could still distinguish her two sons at a glance. Seeing that her son was safe and sound, she smiled happily. But the next second she couldn't smile, because another figure came out from the passage behind her son. Sheng Guanyan's smile turned cold. Gong Sunyu. Gong Sunyu stood beside Sheng Guanqing. Behind him, 5 experts came out. One of them was Elder Lu, and the other was Jie Xingzhou. Jie Xingzhou's long sword was pointed at Sheng Guanqing's back. Probably no one expected that Gong Sunyu would come to Ghost Mountain instead of guarding the city outside. Mu Qingchen and the accompanying experts pulled out their long swords and surrounded Sheng Guanyin in the middle. Sheng Guanyin restrained the gentle expression of a mother and restored the aura of a high and mighty crown princess. She said coldly, "Gong Sunyu, what do you want to do?" Gong Sunyu said indifferently, "Your Highness the Crown Princess of the Great Yen, long time no see. Thank you for remembering me." Sheng Guanyin smiled faintly. "My cousin defeated him. I just happened to remember." When Jin Empire was sent to Yen Empire, Xianyuan Cheng fought with Gong Sunyu, and Gong Sunyu was defeated. Gong Sunyu was not enraged. Instead, he said arrogantly, "It's a pity that Xianyuan Cheng was shot to death on the city gate tower. If he was still alive, I wouldn't mind sparring with him again." Xianyuan Cheng's tragic death was a thorn in Sheng Guanyan's heart. He didn't die under the enemy's blade, but was nailed to the city gate tower by his own red-tasseled spear. What a tragic situation. Sheng Guanyan's fingernails under her wide sleeves were almost pinched into her flesh, but her face was still calm. "My cousin is gone, but my 7th cousin is still alive. If you have the life to go out, you can also find him to have a competition. But I guess the ending won't be any different from many years ago." Gong Sunyu snorted. "Arrogant." Sheng Guanyin said coldly, "Stop talking nonsense. If you have the ability, then go out and fight." Gong Sunyu smiled faintly. "With you in my hands, why do I need to fight? Crown Princess, will you obediently surrender, or will my men come and catch you?" Mu Qingchen raised the long sword in his hand. Gong Sunyu didn't look at Mu Qingchen, but continued to look at Sheng Guanyin. "You should know that your men are no match for me. If you really send them to their deaths, I don't care." Sheng Guanyin said. Qingchen stepped back. Mu Qingchen turned to look at her. "Your Highness." Sheng Guanyin nodded slightly. "Listen to me." As she spoke, she looked at Gong Sunyu and said seriously, "I and Crown Princess will go with you. Let them go." "Okay." Gong Sunyu generously agreed. Elder Lu said, "General, let them go. What if they go to call for reinforcements?" Gong Sunyu said unscrupulously, "If they want reinforcements, then so be it. With the Crown Princess and Crown Princess in my hands, even if there are thousands of soldiers and horses, so what? Don't you think so, Crown Princess of the Great Yen?" Sheng Guanyin angrily turned her face away, not wanting to pay attention to him. Gong Sunyu waved his hand. Jie Xingzhou pointed his sword at Mu Qingchen and the others. "My lord has agreed to let you go. Why aren't you leaving? If you don't leave, I will take action." Sheng Guanyin said, "All of you leave. This is a military order. A military order is like a mountain, cannot be disobeyed." Mu Qingchen clenched his fists, knelt down on one knee and saluted. "Qingchen will take his leave." The group went back the way they came from. Sheng Guanyin came in front of her son, raised her hand to touch his thin cheeks, and asked worriedly, "You have lost weight. Who told you to come to the border? Didn't I tell you to stay in the manor? You are disobedient again." Shang Guanqing lowered his head. This son knows his mistake. Shang Guanyan asked again. Did you take your medicine? Shang Guanqing said with grievance. I haven't taken today's medicine. Shang Guanyan hurriedly asked. Why didn't you take it? Shang Guanqing glanced at them. Shang Guanyan frowned and coldly looked at Gong Sunyu. You took my son's medicine? Give it back to me. If anything happens to my son, I'll die here. I want to see what you can use to threaten the Yan Kingdom's army. Gong Sunyu faintly said. Give it to him. Jie Xingzhou opened the bag he snatched from Shang Guanqing and rummaged through it. It was full of bottles and jars. Which one is your medicine? Shang Guanqing pointed. That one. Jie Xingzhou. Which one? Shang Guanqing. That one. Find it yourself. Jie Xingzhou searched the bag for the daggers and concealed weapons. Shang Guanqing took the bag, squatted on the ground, and found a bottle of medicine. He pulled the cork and drank it. Jie Xingzhou secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He almost thought that he was going to cheat. Shang Guanqing suddenly covered his chest and fell to the ground in pain. You poisoned me. Jie Xingzhou's face changed. I didn't. Shang Guanqing rolled on the ground in pain. Shang Guanyan's face turned pale as she rushed over. Qing'er, ah! Shang Guanqing was in so much pain that his eyes almost popped out. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and slammed the stone wall. With a crash, the ground suddenly opened, and he and Shang Guanyan fell down together. Jie Xingzhou flew over, and used both hands to press the stone door that was forcefully closing in the ground. Then he saw a playful and cynical handsome face. Shang Guanqing was lying on the soft haystack, holding a gun in his arms. His ruffian appearance was completely different from the little sweetheart from before. He hooked up the right corner of his lips and smiled evilly. Goodbye, General Jie. Bang. Jie Xingzhou was sent flying by a shot. Digression. Let's ask Brother Qing if he's awesome. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10538339. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 876. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are available here. Everything happened so fast that even Gong Sunyu couldn't react in time. The main reason was that Gong Sunyu didn't expect Shang Guanqing to make such a move. They were obviously two people who didn't know martial arts. Shang Guanyan once knew it, but it was later crippled. In short, Jie Xingzhou was more than enough to catch them. Therefore, Gong Sunyu didn't stop him. Unexpectedly, he saw Jie Xingzhou being sent flying in front of him. Even he felt a burst of pressure from the terrifying momentum. This cave was considered a transit point for all the major passages, so it was relatively wide. When Jie Xingzhou hit the ceiling of the cave, the huge impact almost caused the ground to collapse. Dust rustled and fell on everyone's bodies. Gong Sunyu raised his hand to block the dust from entering his eyes. The rest of the people also covered their faces and heads. The only person who wasn't unfamiliar with this sound was Elder Lu. When he and his companion Elder Zhang entered Ghost Mountain to save Min Hongyi, Shang Guanqing, who claimed to be the Ghost King, used the same method to kill Elder Zhang. This kind of weapon was too powerful. He didn't dare to take the brunt of it, so he didn't avenge Elder Zhang. Instead, he quickly took the seriously injured Min Hongyi and fled. Unfortunately, Min Hongyi's heart was pierced by another brat's silver spear, causing him to only bring back a corpse. He had a lingering fear of this kind of thing last time. Today, he experienced it again at such a close distance, which made him even more fearful. He had a very strange feeling that the weapon in Shang Guanqing's hand couldn't be blocked by any expert, no matter how strong they were. Jie Xingzhou fell to the ground, his flesh mangled. He didn't die immediately, but anyone could see that he couldn't be saved. The stone door on the ground quickly closed after Jie Xingzhou was sent flying. Gong Sunyu went to touch the stone wall that Shang Guanqing had touched, but the stone door didn't react. Gong Sunyu kicked the stone door open, but Shang Guanqing and Shang Guanyin had already disappeared from the secret room. He jumped down, trying to find the passage they had escaped to. However, the walls were solid, so there was only one possibility. The passage had been blocked. He frowned, which was rare. Who set up the mechanism? So exquisite. Compared to this person, Yu Luyi's ability was not enough. Great General, what do we do now? Elder Lu suppressed the shock in his heart and asked calmly. Gong Sunyu coldly said, "Find them even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground." Elder Lu said, "I'm afraid it won't be easy to find." Gong Sunyu snorted coldly and said, "Then set fire to it. I don't believe that they can still hide after I burn the entire passageway into a fire dragon." In another passage, Shang Guanqing and Shang Guanyin confirmed that they were safe for the time being and stopped to catch their breath. Shang Guanyin leaned against the wall behind her, put her hands on her waist, wiped the sweat on her forehead, and gasped for breath. "Son, why did you come to the border? If it weren't for Jiao Jiao, Mother wouldn't have known that you were trapped in Ghost Mountain." "Who is Jiao Jiao?" Shang Guanqing asked, puzzled. Shang Guanyin was even more puzzled than him. "Haven't you seen him before? She escaped into the Ghost Mountain with Tang Yueshan and took a newborn baby with her." "That's right, the child is temporarily in a big family in the city. There is a wet nurse, so he is very safe." In that case, Shang Guanqing understood. Then he was even more surprised. "He called Jiao Jiao? What kind of name is this?" Shang Guanyin said. "Mother will tell you about Jiao Jiao in detail later. First, tell Mother what is going on." "That's..." Shang Guanqing's eyes flashed. He suddenly bent down his tall body and rubbed his head on her shoulder. "I missed you, so I came to find you. Well, you didn't praise me but scolded me. Am I still your little sweetheart?" Shang Guanyan's eyes didn't waver. "You overdid it." The lines were also very shocking. "What little sweetheart? You are 20 years old. You are so careless." Shang Guanqing broke his facade in a second, straightened up and bitterly touched his nose. "I just came out to play." Shang Guanyin looked at him with a dark face. "You came to the border?" Shang Guanqing snorted. "Haven't you come to play?" "Shang Guanyin," Shang Guanyin said seriously, "I will settle the matter of you coming to the border when we go back. Now tell me, how did you fall into Gong Sunyu's hands?" Shang Guanqing unhappily curled his lips. "Isn't it because of that guy Jie Xingzhou?" Since Jie Xingzhou found that there was movement underground, he ordered the Jin army to dig tunnels with all their strength. At first, they only dug in the village. Later, Jie Xingzhou suddenly had an idea and ran to the back of the mountain and the forest to dig. After digging for a while, they really dug a lot of tunnels. At first, the Jin army dug one tunnel, but Shang Guanqing blocked the other one. But the 20,000 Jin army was too good at digging. If this continued, all the tunnels would be blocked, and they would never be able to get out. So Shang Guanqing, with the identity of the emperor's grandson, walked into the trap. In Jie Xingzhou's view, the 1,000 lives underground were not worth mentioning compared to the emperor's grandson. So he really didn't bother to continue to dig people. He thought about simply destroying the tunnels. So Shang Guanqing lied to him, saying that there were treasures in the tunnels. As long as the Jin army didn't kill him, he would give the treasures to the Jin army. Shang Guanyan's mouth twitched. And Jie Xingzhou believed it? How could he believe this kind of lie? How stupid is Jie Xingzhou? Shang Guanqing pointed to himself. "It should be your son. I'm so powerful." Shang Guanyan's face was full of black lines. "Son, where did your confidence come from?" Shang Guanqing raised his eyebrows. "I originally planned to trick Jie Xingzhou into a trap and kill him. Who knew that he would inform Gong Sunyu? Gong Sunyu still has a bit of brain. I think he is a talent, so I don't want to kill him so quickly." Shang Guanyin. "You just can't kill him, right? Gong Sunyu's martial arts are excellent, and his brain is also good. He is much more difficult to deal with than Jiexingzhou. Shang Guanqing went around in circles, but he didn't get the chance to kill Gong Sunyu. Then he met his mother in the small cave just now. Shang Guanyan sighed. Her mood was very complicated. This son looked sloppy, but he had a pure and innocent heart. He was not good at literature or martial arts, but he did many things that civil officials and generals couldn't do. If it weren't for this weak body, her mother. There's movement. Shang Guanqing's voice interrupted Shang Guanyan's thoughts. Shang Guanyan's expression turned cold. She raised her head and carefully listened to the movement above. It's footsteps, Shang Guanqing asked strangely. What are they doing up there in a hurry? Hurry up. You all hurry up. Here. Here too. It was Jin Jun's stern shout. Shang Guanyan frowned. It seems to be the sound of splashing water. Splashing water. Shang Guanqing looked up at the ground and thought seriously. His face changed. Not good. They are going to set fire to the tunnel. Shang Guanyan clenched her fists. Are they going to roast us like chickens? Shang Guanqing said with a dignified expression. We can't let them light the fire. The cave where the villagers and the ghost soldiers were located was very deep, and there was a stream passing through it. They didn't need to worry about being roasted, but there were different mechanisms in the tunnel. Some of them were even buried with gunpowder. Once it exploded, it would bring unpredictable consequences. 1,000 lives would be buried alive in the collapsed tunnel. It would be hell on earth. I'll lead them away, Shang Guanqing said. Qing'er, you come back. Shang Guanyan grabbed him. I'll go. I'm the crown princess. My identity is more valuable than yours. My words have more weight. Shang Guanqing helplessly spread out his hands. Okay, I won't argue with you. Having said that, he suddenly pressed the mechanism on the wall and pushed Shang Guanyan into the tunnel behind him. Shang Guanqing. Go straight, you can go to the back of the mountain. Shang Guanyan's face suddenly changed. Qing'er. The stone door was closed. Shang Guanyan patted the stone door and looked for the mechanism. Qing'er. Shang Guanqing turned and walked forward. His eyes were cold and his pace was firm. Lead them away. I only need to make a deal with them. With my resourcefulness, it won't be a problem to stall for time. The Imperial Army will arrive in time. He murmured. Suddenly, he felt a pain in his chest. His legs went soft and he knelt on the ground. The poison in his body. Why did it have to act up at this time? He touched his pouch. It was empty. I lost the antidote. I just need to hold on a little longer. I just need to get through it. Anyway, it's not the first time this poison has acted up. I can still walk. Shang Guanqing covered his chest with one hand and stood up with the other hand supporting himself on the wall. Make a deal with Gong Sunyu. I'm the imperial grandson of the Yen Kingdom. Capture me, and you can threaten the Yen Kingdom's military strength. I can also take you to find treasures. Shang Guanqing felt a sudden burst of pain in his chest. He couldn't stand it anymore and fell to the ground. His knees were bruised, and his gums were bleeding. The poison was eroding his body. He couldn't stand up anymore. He had never felt such pain before. Am I going to die? No, I can't die yet. Not now. Shang Guanqing endured the heart-wrenching pain and used all his strength to crawl toward the entrance of the tunnel. I'm almost there. And I don't have any strength left. His hand pushed open the mechanism of the tunnel, but he didn't have the strength to crawl out. He fainted on the ground and lost his last bit of consciousness. Digression. There was a small bug in the previous 2 chapters about the underground tunnel exit. It was inside the city and didn't lead to the outside. It had been fixed. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1053777464. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 877. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novels will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found online will be available here. In the afternoon, strong winds blew. Marquis Xianping and the 50,000 imperial court troops launched a strong attack on the North City Gate. Under the cover of the shields, the 6 chariots of the state of Liang charged through the rain of arrows and rocks from the city tower and crashed into the tightly shut city gate one after another. This city gate had been smashed a month ago and was just repaired a few days ago. Now it was smashed again. The Jin army behind the city gate raised their spears and waited solemnly. Why are they smashing into us so quickly? Did they make a mistake? A Jin army asked. When they first attacked Pu City, it took them at least half an hour from the time they blew the bugle horn to the time they actually hit the city gates. They sent out a total of 6 chariots, but 4 of them were destroyed by the huge rocks on the city walls. The others could not answer him. The general who was organizing the defense said, "Everyone, don't panic. The Yan army doesn't have as many soldiers as we do. Plus, they just fought a battle with the Liang army and marched here overnight. Their entire army is exhausted. They are just relying on the weapons they stole from the Liang army to show off their power. At most, they are an arrow at the end of its flight. Even if they charge in, they are not our match." These words successfully encouraged the soldiers. The Jin army on the city gate tower was filled with morale once more. Outside the city wall, scaling ladders broke through the arrow rain and arrived below the city wall. The Liang army's scaling ladders were too easy to use. There was a shield at the top and a person stood on a wooden board that could be lifted up. With a so sound, the shield on the ladder would automatically open up a window. Just as a Jin soldier lifted up a rock, a figure darted out from the skylight and pierced his throat with a spear. Since the first person climbed up the city gate tower, there would naturally be a second. The Jin army understood the pattern of the scaling ladders. The moment the window opened, they raised their swords or spears and stabbed down viciously. There were people climbing up the city gate tower, and people falling down the city gate tower. War was never an absolute home ground for any side. It was a battle where one stepped on countless corpses. Regardless of victory or defeat, there would be casualties. The window of another ladder opened. Jin Jun shouted and stabbed at the window of the ladder. At the same time, a Yen soldier came from the side and knocked Jin Jun's weapon away. Then Jin Jun kicked Jin Jun down the tower. As more and more Yen soldiers climbed up the city wall, the situation on the city wall started to spiral out of control. They were a tired army, but they were not at the end of their rope. This was the land of the great Yen, and no one could invade it. The general on the tower saw that the situation was not good and ordered crossbows. A crossbow was a ballista that could shoot further than a bow and arrow, and it was more lethal. Its power was enough to destroy any war chariot. Tang Yueshan drew his longbow and shot the crossbowmen one by one, taking them down one by one. At such a long distance, at such a tricky angle, Jin Jun simply did not know how that person had managed to hit the target. "That's him. Shoot him." Unfortunately, he no longer had the chance. With a loud bang, the last city gate was breached. Tang Yueshan put away his bow and drew his sword. He shouted 3 times in the Yen language, which he rarely spoke, "Grandsons, your grandfather is here. Brothers, let's go." Everyone raised their weapons and shouted as they followed him into the city. Tang Yueshan led the charge, but soon someone caught up with him. To be exact, there were 2 of them. One was riding on a horse, and the other was flying in the sky with Qin Gong. Old Xiao, you're going into battle? This is not like you. Don't you just sit back and watch the show? Since Marquis Xianping's waist was injured, he rarely went into battle. Marquis Xianping glanced at him and said, "I'll leave it to you, old Tang." Tang Yueshan was stunned. He did not understand what Marquis Xianping meant. The next moment, he saw Changjing rushing to the Jin army and opening a bloody path for Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping rushed over on his horse, leaving Tang Yueshan with a carefree back view. Tang Yueshan was dumbfounded. "Old Xiao, I suspect you're a deserter, but I have no evidence." Marquis Xianping exuded a fierce aura that could kill any Buddha or god that stood in his way. No one in the Jin army dared to stop him. Even so, it was too far to go to Ghost Mountain from here. In the passage of Ghost Mountain, Shangguanyin couldn't open the stone door blocked by Shangguanqing. She had to keep going forward until she finally came to the back of the mountain and met Mu Qingchen. "Your Highness." Mu Qingchen stepped forward to support her. He looked behind her and his eyes dimmed. The imperial grandson Shangguanyin was so worried that she could no longer maintain her composure. Her voice was choked with sobs. Gongsun Yu wanted to burn the mountain. Went to stop him. Mu Qingchen opened his mouth. He didn't expect this at all. Didn't the imperial grandson go to Tsangshui Pass? How could he appear in Pu City? Moreover, he vaguely felt that this imperial grandson was different from the one he had seen in Xingdu. Also, what was that commotion just now? So many things had happened that Shangguanyin forgot to ask about it for a while. She only remembered that after they fell, took out a long iron cylinder from under the haystack. It looked like a firecracker or a black fire bead. It was so powerful that even the boat was blown away. "We have to find quickly." Shangguanyin took out the porcelain bottle in her hand. Tears began to roll in her eyes uncontrollably. He dropped his medicine. "If the poison in his body acts up, he will die." Mu Qingchen said, "Let's go back the way we came and see if we can find the small cave again." Gongsun Yu lost track of Shangguanqing and Shangguanyin in the small cave. If Shangguanqing wanted to find him, he should go back there. Drip, drip, drip. The water in the passage dripped on Shangguanqing's cheeks. Shangguanqing had a dream. He dreamed of his childhood. He always sneaked to the back of the mountain to play, and occasionally went to the village to find his friends. No one knew that he was the imperial grandson. His mother never let him feel that his identity or his body was different from ordinary people. When others climbed trees, he also climbed trees. When others fought, he also fought. When others lay by the stream and drank cold water, he also did the same. The price he had to pay was higher than others. He was afraid and wouldn't do it again. His mother didn't restrict him too much. He used to think that every child would be poisoned several times a month, and that every child would die in less than 20 years. It wasn't until he accidentally learned about his situation from the servants that he realized that he was the only exception. He asked his mother why. His mother told him that everyone was born differently. Some were rich, some were poor, some were ugly, some were beautiful, some were smart, some were stupid, some were strong, and some were weak. Some were born as ordinary people, and some were born as the imperial grandson. There were different forms of life, and different lengths of life, but they were all normal. His mother didn't treat him differently from normal people. Therefore, he never worried about his body and didn't feel that he was pitiful. He calmly accepted his own life and death. If he didn't feel sad, it would be because he couldn't bear to part with the people he cared about. Slap. A large droplet of water hit his cheek. He was slightly awakened, and his eyelids moved slightly. "I can't die yet. My lord. There's movement in front." Jin Jun's voice came from the end of the tunnel. Then there was a rush of footsteps. A hand grabbed Shangguanqing's collar and lifted him from the ground. He said in disbelief, "My lord. It's the imperial grandson of the great Yen." Thud. Something fell to the ground. He picked it up and looked. "My lord, I don't know what this is." "Bring it over," Gongsun Yu said calmly. He was at a fork in the tunnel. In front of him was the tunnel that Shangguanqing was in. Behind him was the tunnel that led to the surface. There were two more tunnels on both sides. One of them connected to the small cave just now. They had come from this tunnel. As for the last tunnel, it was unknown where it led to. The guard carried Shangguanqing in one hand and a gun in the other. He strode toward Gongsun Yu. He didn't care if Shangguanqing's body could withstand his violent dragging. Shangguanqing's knees were bleeding from the friction. "Are you still breathing?" Gongsun Yu asked. "I'm still breathing." As the guard spoke, he violently threw Shangguanqing on the ground. He bent down and grabbed his hair, intending to lift him up for his lord to see. However, the moment he stretched out his hand, he heard a whooshing sound. It was very soft and faint, as if it was just his imagination. Then he saw his hand fly out. His arm was still there, and the gesture of grabbing his hair was still there. His hand was gone. Ah! He finally came back to his senses and let out a shrill scream. Blood spurted out like a fountain. Just as it was about to spray on Shang Guanqing's back, a black-clothed youth flashed over and carried Shang Guanqing away. The black-clothed youth stepped on the stone wall opposite him and used the force to bounce back. He landed on one knee and steadily landed on the tunnel he came from. Another expert drew his sword and slashed at the black-clothed youth. The black-clothed youth held Shang Guanqing with both hands and couldn't free his hands. Behind him, Marquis Xianping walked out with a cold gaze and kicked the man in the chest. Digression. Marquis Xianping. How dare you touch my son? Asterisk, it's a bit jammed. Please come and read it in the afternoon. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10536165. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile reading website. Chapter 878. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. That person was an expert of the Great Jin Kingdom. Yet he was sent flying with a single kick without being able to retaliate. 2 experts were down in an instant. Gong Sunyu's expression turned cold. He was also born with a handsome face. When he was young, he had similar experiences with Xian Yuancheng and was mocked for being a little girl. When they grew up, both of them became famous warriors on the battlefield. The difference was that Xian Yuancheng's heart was filled with light, while his was filled with darkness. Gong Sunyu looked coldly at the 2 people who had suddenly appeared. One of them was a young man about 17 or 18 years old. He was dressed in black and had a long sword at his waist. His expression was cold. He was the one who had cut off the guard's hand. His attack was extremely fast and he managed to kill the guard right under Gong Sunyu's nose. The other person was dressed in the armor of the Great Yin Kingdom. His weapon was a long blade that flashed with a black light. The long blade was stabbed into the ground, and his hands rested lightly on the hilt. The passageway was a little short for him. He tilted his head slightly. His expression was cold, but his eyes were extremely arrogant. For a moment, the well-connected passageway was unable to contain his aura. Even Gong Sunyu felt a terrifying pressure. Gong Sunyu narrowed his eyes. He could not recall which general of the Great Yin Kingdom this was. Marquis Xianping said authoritatively, "Chongjing, take him away first." Oh! Chongjing carried the dying Shang Guanqing and turned to leave. Elder Lu suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Chongjing? Chongjing of the Dark Knight clan? Gong Sunyu frowned slightly and looked at him in confusion. Elder Lu suddenly realized. He looked at Chongjing and said, "I was wondering why your sword and moves look so familiar. You are really the young master of the Dark Knight clan?" It was not strange that Gong Sunyu did not recognize the moves of the Dark Knight clan. After all, the Dark Knight clan was a sect of the Jianghu and had nothing to do with the imperial court. However, the Sword Hut and the Dark Knight clan had some dealings in the Jianghu. Elder Lu had personally gone to the Dark Knight clan and met Master Chongquan and his son, little Chongjing. At that time, Chongjing was not even 10 years old. She was small and petite, completely different from the tall and straight young man in front of her. However, he recognized the sword from the Dark Knight sect. Chongjing said to Elder Lu, "Don't talk nonsense." Marquis Xianping turned his head to look at Chongjing. The young master of the Dark Knight clan. Chongjing's expression did not change as she said, "He's talking nonsense." Marquis Xianping said, "Let's go first. We'll talk about this when we get back. Chang Jing broke into a run. Gong Sun Yu said coldly. You want to leave? Not so easy. Catch them. The remaining 5 or 6 guards swarmed forward. Marquis Xianping was blocking the entrance of the 4th passageway. He didn't even bat an eyelid when he saw the murderous look on their faces. These people were not ordinary guards. They were all top experts in Jin Nation. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to accompany Gong Sun Yu. They did not know this general of Great Yin at all. In other words, he was just a nameless man. Bluffing bastards who only knew how to launch sneak attacks were no match for them at all. The first guard who rushed forward brandished his sword. Watch out for my sword. Marquis Xianping grabbed the hilt of his saber and pulled it up from the ground. With a twist of his palm, he slashed down. That person was still flying. His head had already moved. Marquis Xianping did not have the hobby of killing people, nor did he like bloody and violent methods. However, there was no mercy on the battlefield. Killing was a mission, and also a way to save oneself. Every time he left a move for his enemy, he would give his enemy a chance to kill him. Moreover, intimidation was very important. Sure enough, after this move, the remaining people were all startled, and they hesitated for a moment in their attacks. Now is the time. Marquis Xianping raised his saber again and slashed down, killing one person with each strike. He showed no mercy and did not give Gong Sun Yu's lackeys any chance to retaliate. He would definitely fight with Gong Sun Yu in a while. When that time came, he might not be able to care about these little moths. Instead of letting them chase after his son and Chang Jing, he might as well get rid of them now. It's your turn. He waved his saber and pointed it at Elder Lu arrogantly. Gong Sun Yu said with a dangerous gaze, I'll deal with him. You go after the eldest grandson of Great Yan's emperor. Elder Lu nodded. He picked up the musket on the ground. This thing was too powerful. He could not let it fall into the hands of this man. Gong Sun Yu and Marquis Xianping began to fight. Gong Sun Yu was a formidable opponent. He had absolute talent in martial arts. His martial arts were not inferior to Xian Yuancheng's in the past. All these years, he had been improving his martial arts in extreme battles. It could be said that within the 6 nations, there was no one who could match him. He could use any kind of weapon. However, he had a sword with him today. He drew his sword and threw away the scabbard. Then he attacked Marquis Xianping fiercely. The tunnel they were in was slightly larger than the tunnel, but it was still difficult for them to use their full strength. This was especially true for Marquis Xianping's saber, which was greatly restricted by the space. The two of them fought to a draw after the first exchange. Elder Lu took the opportunity to enter the 4th passage and chased in the direction where Chang Jing had left. Marquis Xianping slashed with his saber, but was blocked by Gong Sun Yu's sword. Your opponent is me, Gong Sun Yu said. Marquis Xianping was truly enraged. He laughed coldly and looked at Gong Sun Yu. Gong Sun Yu, do you really think that I can't beat you? This time he spoke in Zhao Nation's language. Gong Sun Yu was startled. Marquis Xianping pointed his saber at him. Many years ago, your Gong Sun family was defeated by me. Today, you're just adding another defeat to your record. This arrogant gaze, this arrogant tone. Gong Sun Yu's eyes trembled. You are the Nether King? Many years ago, there was a fearsome youth in the underground dojo who defeated the top experts from the 6 nations. One of them was the Gong Sun family's genius swordsman. Gong Sun Ling was another martial arts prodigy of the Gong Sun family. However, she was defeated by that 18-year-old youth from the Zhao Nation. After returning to the Gong Sun family, Gong Sun Ling completely lost her will to fight. The Gong Sun family lost a future general. The Nether King was what everyone called that youth. As for why they called him that, other than the explanation of his strength, there was another important reason. The youth's nickname in the underground dojo was very despicable. Lousy number 1 in the world. It's you. It's actually you. Gong Sun Yu suddenly had a feeling that this was destined. Very good. I've always wanted to see who defeated Gong Sun Ling and kill him with my own hands. I want to tell the world that it's not the Gong Sun family that's weak, it's Gong Sun Ling that's weak. Marquis Xianping sneered. Gong Sun Yu didn't care about his threat. He continued. However, Aren't you from the Zhao nation? Why did you become a general of the Yan nation? Marquis Xianping rested his saber on his shoulder. What does it have to do with you? Are you going to fight or not? If not, then get out of my way. Gong Sunyu's eyes turned cold. He swung another killing move at Marquis Xianping. In this narrow tunnel, no complicated moves could be used. It was a battle of speed and internal energy. Gong Sunyu was so fast that only an afterimage could be seen. However, with Marquis Xianping's powerful five senses, his movements were magnified in slow motion. He could see everything clearly. Marquis Xianping said, Gong Sunyu, no one can stop me from seeing my son. He took a step back and retreated into the fourth tunnel. Then he swung his saber forward. The long saber handle was cut off by Gong Sunyu's sword. Gong Sunyu snorted coldly. You're only SSO? Before he finished speaking, Marquis Xianping grabbed the short saber handle and swung it at Gong Sunyu. Gong Sunyu's expression changed. You. Marquis Xianping did it on purpose. A long saber handle was already inconvenient. Cutting it short made it easier. The tunnel was narrow. Gong Sunyu had nowhere to dodge. He swung his sword in time to block. When the saber and sword met, sparks flew everywhere. Gong Sunyu could feel the immense pressure coming from the saber. This was the fury of a father. Gong Sunyu, you're not qualified to hurt my son. Marquis Xianping pulled out his hidden secondary saber and stabbed it into Gong Sunyu's abdomen. In a tag team battle, experts would not give their opponents the chance to attack them repeatedly. Victory was decided in an instant. However, Gong Sunyu was wearing armor similar to Gu Jiao's. The tough armor blocked Marquis Xianping's saber. Gong Sunyu laughed mockingly. Is this all you've got? Hades. He pulled out the dagger at his waist and stabbed it at Marquis Xianping. Clang. It was the sound of the saber piercing through armor. Gong Sunyu laughed without restraint. But in the next second, he could no longer laugh. He lowered his head and looked at the saber that had pierced through his armor. His eyes widened in disbelief. This was impossible. His armor was impenetrable. No one could penetrate it. He looked at Marquis Xianping. His saber had pierced Marquis Xianping's shoulder. Marquis Xianping did not use any inner energy to protect himself. He had used all his inner energy for this attack. This was a madman. A madman even crazier than him. Marquis Xianping's eyes were cold. I've said it before. No one can hurt my son. Gong Sunyu had been stabbed. My lord. Zhu Zhongquang flew over and separated the two of them with one palm. He grabbed the injured Gong Sunyu and quickly fled into another tunnel. Not far behind Marquis Xianping, a black-clothed figure walked out from a hidden cave. It was Changjing. Just now, Changjing and Shang Guanqing didn't run away at all, but hid in this stone cave. Elder Lu did not see them and chased after them like a fool. Why didn't you chase after him? Changjing asked. Marquis Xianping said mysteriously, he shouldn't have died in my hands. There's someone more suitable than me to kill him. Changjing hit the nail on the head. You're just too lazy to kill him, right? Marquis Xianping said seriously. Am I that kind of person? Changjing, if you continue to speak the truth, you won't have any more marbles. Seeing that his son could not be delayed, he was in no mood to fight with Gong Sunyu. And he was right. There was someone who wanted to kill Gong Sunyu more than him. Marquis Xianping arrived in front of the cave. He who would not bat an eyelid even if Mount Tai collapsed, suddenly became nervous. He was going to see his son. Digression. To celebrate the reunion of father and son. To guarantee a wave of monthly votes? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1053555896. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 879. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are here. The grotto hidden in the wall was not big. Shang Guanqing curled up inside. His tall figure looked particularly aggrieved. The luminous pearls on the wall slightly reflected a clear pearl light, shining on Shang Guanqing's pale handsome face. This was the first time Marquis Xianping seriously looked at his son, whom he had reunited with 20 years ago. His appearance was almost exactly the same as Xiaohang's. This was not his original appearance, but a disguised appearance of Xiaoheng. In order not to let people know that he was not Shang Guanyan's biological son, he had been pretending to be Xiaoheng. Thinking of this, Marquis Xianping felt a little distressed. He squatted on the ground, looking at his son nervously and expectantly. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know how to start. It was said that generals were stupid, but he was not. But at this moment, thousands of words were stuck in his throat, and he stuttered. He couldn't make a sound. He thought for a moment, stretched out a finger, and carefully poked his son's shoulder. He was really very careful, for fear that his son would not like him. He was slightly startled when he felt a hot temperature from his fingertips. Changjing. What? Changjing was thinking about how to save his little disguise. A fire starter, Marquis Xianping said seriously. Changjing had been with Marquis Xianping for so long. Most of the time Marquis Xianping was not serious. When he was serious, it meant that things were serious. He hurriedly took out a fire starter from his arms, blew it, and shined it in front of him. Marquis Xianping was checking Shang Guanqing's body to see if there were any injuries such as fractures. After confirming that there were no injuries, Marquis Xianping checked his pulse and breath. He was not a doctor, but after practicing martial arts for a long time, he could determine whether there were internal injuries. There are no internal injuries. Why is he so weak? He seems to be dying. Changjing said. Marquis Xianping clenched his fists. Changjing. Changjing decisively stepped back 3 steps to avoid someone's anger. But Changjing was right. Shang Guanqing was dying. The poison in his body was acting up. He didn't have the antidote with him. He couldn't make it. Could it be that the poison flared up? Xianping Ho's heart faintly had this speculation. Shang Guanyan said that the number of times the poison flared up every month was not many, and he always had the antidote on him. Marquis Xianping did not find the antidote on him. His expression turned grave. He took off his armor, carried his son on his back, and strode out. Where are we going? Changjing asked. South City Gate. Marquis Xianping said seriously. Gu Jiao was there. Changjing glanced at the trail of blood on the ground. In the end, she didn't say anything about the wound on his shoulder. Changjing asked, why do you want to take off your armor? There were Jin soldiers outside. It was very dangerous. Marquis Xianping said casually, the armor is hard. She looked at her son intently. They came in through the tunnel dug by the Jin soldiers. The exit was in the village. At this moment, the Jin soldiers were pouring oil around, so the village was empty. Marquis Xianping saw the light coming in from the entrance. Just as he was about to step out with his son on his back, a tall figure suddenly flashed and blocked the entrance with a gun. Marquis Xianping stopped. Changjing, who was behind him, also stopped. Marquis Xianping looked coldly at Elder Lu, who suddenly appeared, and said in a heavy tone, get out of the way. I don't want to kill anyone. Elder Lu said, you can get rid of Gong Sunyu. It seems that you do have some skills. I may not be your opponent, but you may not be able to handle this thing in my hand. It's not that I may not be able to, it's that I definitely can't. Marquis Xianping didn't know what this thing was. He had no fear and planned to rush over. At this moment, Shang Guanqing, who was on his back, seemed to feel something and regained a little consciousness. He opened his eyes in a daze. His cheeks were flushed because of the high temperature. He looked at the gun in Elder Lu's hand and said weakly, don't be afraid. He's holding it upside down. His voice was very soft, but Elder Lu's ears were very sharp. He still heard it. Elder Lu frowned and quickly turned around. Marquis Xianping took the opportunity to jump up. Unfortunately, Marquis Xianping underestimated the gun's speed. A gun was much faster than a crossbow. The moment Elder Lu pulled the trigger, there was a loud bang. Marquis Xianping was suspended in the air. What the F***CK? What the hell was this? Elder Lu was directly sent flying by a shot. The gun fell to the ground. Sheng Guanqing lay on Marquis Xianping's shoulder. Haha, idiot. Marquis Xianping. Sheng Guanqing was so hot that he was dizzy. He didn't know that this person was his father. He also didn't know that his father was stunned by his words. He only felt that this back was broad and warm. It made him feel at ease. He lay softly on his father's back with his eyes closed. His head was dizzy, and he continued his words. Don't be afraid. When we go out, Brother Qing will protect you. If there's wine, we'll drink together. If there's a girl, we'll sleep together. The enemy didn't trip Marquis Xianping, but his son's words almost made Marquis Xianping stumble and fall into a ditch. I seem to understand Qin Fengwan's feeling of wanting to kill me every time. The virgin Sheng Guanqing fainted after bragging. Marquis Xianping was also about to faint. In his 40 years of life, he had never experienced such a landslide. It's all Ahing's fault for raising my expectations for all my sons. Fortunately, Sheng Guanyan and Mu Qingchen found this place. The two saw Marquis Xianping, who was frozen at the entrance of the cave. Marquis Xianping was carrying a person on his back. Jing. In the end, Sheng Guanyan was a mother. She could recognize Sheng Guanqing with her brain. She quickly ran over and arrived in front of Marquis Xianping. She didn't ask why Marquis Xianping came over. Instead she asked, "Is Qing poisoned?" Marquis Xianping returned to his senses and said, "I don't know. His situation is not good." "Let me see." Sheng Guanyan reached out to hold her son. Marquis Xianping gently put his son down from his back, knelt on one knee, and held his son in his arms so that Sheng Guanyan could check. "The poison is acting up," Sheng Guanyan said. Sheng Guanqing had acted up countless times since he was a child. Sheng Guanyan was already very familiar with it. She took out the porcelain bottle that she had been holding tightly in her hand, pulled out the cork, and took out a pill. "Do you want water?" Marquis Xianping asked. "No, this medicine will melt in the mouth." Sheng Guanyan put the pill into Sheng Guanqing's mouth and explained. When he was a child, his swallowing ability was not strong. In order to let him take the medicine, the state preceptor improved the prescription. Marquis Xianping was silent. It was hard for him to imagine how his son grew up. "You worked hard. Taking care of a sick child was much more difficult than taking care of a normal child." Sheng Guanyan's hand that was wiping her son's sweat paused and whispered, "It's good that you don't hate me." Marquis Xianping sighed. "Let's not talk about the past." Sheng Guanyan knelt on the ground and wiped her son's hands. She squeezed the handkerchief and said, "Will Xingyang hate me?" Marquis Xianping paused. "I don't know." There were still more than 300 ghost soldiers and 500 villagers hidden in the underground tunnel. They didn't have much time to dwell on it. They must immediately rescue the villagers or drive the Jin army out. The fastest and most effective way was to kill Gong Sunyu. Mu Qingchen and Chang Jing returned to the underground tunnel to look for Gong Sunyu. But they couldn't find even half a shadow of him. Gong Sunyu was no longer in the underground tunnel. He was brought out by Zhu Zhongquang. The two entered the forest. Zhu Zhongquang worriedly looked at his bloody armor. "My lord, are you okay?" Such a hard armor was actually pierced through by that guy. How terrifying. Gong Sunyu lightly said, "It didn't hurt my vitals. I'm fine. What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to guard the north gate?" Zhu Zhongquang said, "I saw the Yan army bring a group of soldiers to Ghost Mountain. I was worried that it would be unfavorable to my lord. With General Cheng guarding the city, my lord can rest assured. By the way, my lord, why didn't I see Jie Xingzhou?" Gong Sunyu frowned. "He's dead." Zhu Zhongquang was shocked. "What?" Gong Sunyu coldly said, "I underestimated that imperial grandson. He was poisoned at a young age, and I thought he was useless. Where's Yu Liuyi?" Zhu Zhongquang awkwardly said, "According to the spies, she fell into the hands of the Yan army. I'm afraid she's most likely dead." 3 of the 4 generals were now dead. Gong Sun Yu smashed his fist on a nearby tree. The birds on the tree were startled and flapped their wings to escape. His face was no longer as cold and calm as it used to be. Instead, it was filled with a strong sense of anxiety and hostility. He gritted his teeth and said, "What's going on in the Yin Kingdom? The Xianyuan family is already dead. The Lord of Shadows is also dead. Why are they still so difficult to deal with?" "Who said the Xianyuan family is dead? Who told you the Lord of Shadows is dead?" A cold and murderous voice suddenly sounded from the forest. Then, Liao Chen stepped on a green branch and descended from the sky like a deity. He was covered in clouds and clouds. He held a 3-foot-long sword in his hand and pointed it at Gong Sun Yu. "The third Lord of Shadows, Xian Yuanzheng, is here to take the life of General Gong Sun." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_826/10534181. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 880. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The third Master of Shadows? Gong Sun Yu's pupils contracted. He couldn't believe that this was real. Didn't Xianyuan Qi become the Master of Shadows? How could it be? Xianyuan Qi became the second Master of Shadows after faking his death. However, he had secret dealings with the Xianyuan family and was discovered by the spies of the Jin nation within a few years. However, Xianyuan Qi hid Xianyuanzheng very well. He didn't even reveal the family tree. No wonder people didn't know about Xianyuanzheng's existence. In the Jin nation, the only person who knew about Xianyuanzheng's existence was Shi Tian. However, it was obvious that Shi Tian didn't leak this information. However, thinking about it carefully, it wasn't impossible. When Gong Sun Yu killed Xianyuan Qi, he saw this person running from afar and calling Xianyuan Qi his father. Therefore, he was indeed Xianyuan Qi's son. Then, it made sense that he inherited Xianyuan Qi's legacy and became the third Master of Shadows. Gong Sun Yu muttered coldly. How do the people of the Sword Hut do things? They said they killed Xianyuan Qi, but he didn't die. They said they destroyed the Shadow Division, but Xianyuan Qi's son appeared in front of them. He collected his thoughts and looked at Liao Chen arrogantly. Your father was defeated by me. Do you really think you can defeat me? It was fine if he didn't mention Xianyuan Qi, but once he did, Liao Chen's anger surged. His father was surrounded by the Jin Nation army and was stabbed in the chest by Gong Sun Yu. Twice. No one knew if he was still alive. It was possible that he would be separated from his father forever after waiting for so many years. All of this was because of Gong Sun Yu. You seem very angry. Torturing the mind of an expert was something that Gong Sun Yu never tired of doing. Gong Sun Yu smiled faintly. Your father wasn't the only Xianyuan family member who died in my hands. Back then when the Xianyuan family rebelled, you didn't think that the meager military strength of the imperial court was enough to kill so many Xianyuan soldiers, right? Speaking of which, the Yan army is strong, but there aren't many experts. Your uncle, Xianyuan Li, died under the trap of the Jin army. Your cousin Xianyuan Zi, the pregnant woman who still had to go to the battlefield, died at the hands of a disciple of the Sword Hut. Your cousin Xianyuan Cheng. It was the Nangong family who leaked his whereabouts, but the one who ended his life was me. I was the one who nailed him to the tower. I was the one who gave the order to kill him. The experts of your Xianyuan family can't even withstand a single blow. Liao Chen was about to explode from anger. Even though he knew that the other party was trying to infuriate him, He still couldn't control his emotions. His aura became chaotic. Gong Sunyu took the opportunity to strike with his palm. Liao Chun was unable to circulate his internal energy in time, and was hit by Gong Sunyu. The huge force sent him flying, crashing into the tree behind him and falling to the ground in a sorry state. Gong Sunyu clicked his tongue and looked disdainfully at Liao Chun, who was sprawled on the ground. He snorted and said, "Look, the people of your Xianyuan family can't even withstand a single blow. I won't allow you to insult the Xianyuan family." Liao Chun used his sword to support himself and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He raised his sword and stabbed at Gong Sunyu. With the field open, there were more moves that could be used. Gong Sunyu felt the incomparably sharp sword aura. It was stronger than he had imagined. Although Gong Sunyu dodged to the side, he was injured by the sword aura. The blood clot that had been formed with great difficulty was torn apart. Fresh blood flowed down his armor. Liao Chun said coldly, "Who is the one who can't withstand a single blow?" Zhu Zhongquang stepped forward and showed his iron fist. "My lord, I'll deal with him." Then he charged at Liao Chun. Unexpectedly, before he could even touch Liao Chun, he was knocked back several steps by a black-robed youth who came from the sky. What a cold sword aura! He had almost been injured. After Zhu Zhongquang steadied himself, he frowned. When he saw that the opponent was only a 17 or 18-year-old youth, his expression turned even uglier. Where did this brat come from? He had appeared too late to hear the conversation between Elder Lu and Chang Jing. Gong Sunyu reminded him, "Be careful. He's the young master of the Dark Knight clan." Someone from the Dark Knight clan? Zhu Zhongquang was even more surprised. The Dark Knight clan had never interacted with the Six Nations. They were even more reclusive than the Tang clan. How did they get involved with someone from the Xianyuan family? If they had really gotten involved with someone from the Xianyuan family, Gong Sunyu wouldn't have been so upset. Chang Jing had appeared with that person from the Zhao kingdom. Moreover, Chang Jing was very obedient to him. The Jin kingdom's imperial family had tried to rope in the Dark Knight clan more than once, but they had all been rejected. He was very confused. How did a person from a lower country manage to subdue the young master of the Dark Knight clan? Chang Jing looked at Zhu Zhongquang and said to Liao Chun, "Leave this guy to me." Liao Chun and Chang Jing had never met before. However, Liao Chun had secretly investigated Marquis Xianping, so he knew of Chang Jing. However, he didn't expect him to be Chang Jing from the Dark Knight clan. "All right." Liao Chun nodded. Chang Jing was already a martial arts freak. In addition, he had received a lot of guidance from Marquis Xianping in the past few years. His martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds. Zhu Zhongquang really couldn't beat him. Zhu Zhongquang was beaten up badly by Chang Jing. After dozens of moves, he was covered in blood. Although his injuries weren't serious, he looked like a mess. It really affected the morale of the troops. His eyes flashed and he said sarcastically, "Does the clan master know that the young master of the Dark Knight clan is colluding with someone from the Xianyuan family?" Chang Jing's move paused. Zhu Zhongquang saw that there was hope. He struck while the iron was hot. As expected, you escaped behind the clan master's back. If he finds out, you'll be in big trouble. He was trying to scare Chang Jing. Chang Jing frowned and thought about it seriously. He felt that Zhu Zhongquang's words made sense. He grunted and said, "Indeed, I can't let my father know. So you must die today." Zhu Zhongquang's eyes widened. "No, that's not what I meant. And him." Chang Jing looked at Gong Sunyu, who was fighting fiercely with Liao Chun. "He must die too. None of you will leave here alive." Zhu Zhongquang was about to collapse. How can you think so clearly at such a young age? You can't even fool a child these days, can you? Zhu Zhongquang was the strongest of the four great generals, but he also cherished his life the most. Otherwise, he wouldn't have held back when he attacked Xianyuan Qi. Even Yu Lu was fiercer than him. But his master was here. He didn't dare to run. He could only bite the bullet and fight Chang Jing. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have asked. This brat was fighting seriously just now. Now he's fighting with all his might. Zhu Zhongquang's body was injured again. On the other side, Liao Chun and Gong Sunyu were evenly matched. Gong Sunyu had practiced martial arts for many more years than Liao Chun. His internal energy and combat experience were not something the young Liao Chen could compare to. But Liao Chen's murderous intent and outstanding talent made him a formidable opponent for Gong Sunyu. After more than 10 moves, Gong Sunyu gradually felt that things were getting tricky, especially since he had been stabbed by Marquis Xianping. Every time they exchanged blows, his wound would be torn open. If this continued, even if he didn't die in battle, he would die from excessive blood loss. Liao Chen didn't have any psychological burden in a fair fight. When Gong Sunyu killed Xian Yuancheng, didn't he rely on the Nangong family to inform him? When he dealt with his father, he also let people take turns to exhaust his father's strength. Then why would he care about the rules of the martial arts world with Gong Sunyu? Liao Chen's palm landed on Gong Sunyu's chest. Gong Sunyu's armor was made of special materials and could withstand many attacks. But this armor was pierced by Marquis Xianping. Liao Chen's internal energy passed through the crack and seeped into his internal organs. He hurriedly used his internal energy to protect his internal organs. Then he stabbed his sword at Liao Chen. But because part of it was protecting himself, the power of this attack was not as strong as before. Liao Chen easily blocked it. The two of them exchanged more than 10 moves. Liao Chen's armor was not as strong as his, and he was hit by a few of his sword energy. "Let's go," Gong Sunyu said to Zhu Zhangquang. Zhu Zhangquang used a feint and flew up. But Chang Jing, who flew faster than him, kicked him down. Zhu Zhangquang. Gong Sunyu turned around in midair. Zhu Zhangquang stretched out his hand. "My lord, don't worry about me. Let's go. I can handle this brat." Gong Sunyu gritted his teeth and left with his qinggong. Liao Chen chased after him. Zhu Zhangquang turned to look at Chang Jing. "I surrender." Chang Jing was speechless. After Gong Sunyu left the forest, he heard the sound of a horn from the West City Gate. The Yin Kingdom took back the West City Gate. Pu City couldn't be defended anymore. He fired the signal to retreat and knocked out a Yen soldier who came as reinforcements. He stole the soldier's horse. He planned to go to the East City Gate, but Liao Chen forced him to go to the South City Gate. Liao Chen also asked for a horse from the army that Tang Yueshan brought to Ghost Mountain. Tang Yueshan went behind a tree to relieve himself. With 2 horses missing, he was quite confused. Liao Chen chased after him closely. Gong Sunyu tried to shake him off several times, but it was to no avail. Xian Yuanzi's strength and perseverance were beyond his imagination. More than 10 years had passed. Not only did the Xian Yuan family not remain silent, but they also bided their time and became so powerful. If the Nether King didn't stab him, this brat wouldn't be his match. That despicable Nether King. Many years ago, Gong Sunling was defeated by him. Now he had also suffered a loss in his hands. Once he got rid of Xian Yuanzheng, he would kill the Nether King. The more Gong Sunyu thought about it, the angrier he got. He was distracted for a moment. When he turned around, he saw that Liao Chen didn't follow him. Instead, he turned into an alley. He frowned and sped up. However, in the next moment, Liao Chen dashed out from another alley and charged at him. Liao Chen gathered all his strength for this attack. He didn't give Gong Sunyu any chance to escape. Gong Sunyu's eyes trembled. What was this brat trying to do? Was he going to die together with him? Liao Chen understood that with his current strength, it would be difficult to kill Gong Sunyu even if he was injured. However, Gong Sunyu had to die. If he didn't die, the Jin army would still have a chance to turn the tables in this battle. Even if he had to die together with Gong Sunyu, he wouldn't hesitate. Gong Sunyu was furious. "You're crazy. You can't kill me." There was no fear in Liao Chen's eyes. "But if I severely injure you, the next Yen army will definitely kill you." At this moment, Gong Sunyu finally understood the meaning of Xuan Yuan's soul. It was never about one person's strength. It was about everyone's fighting spirit. Gong Sunyu gripped the long sword in his hand and prepared to attack with all his strength. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened. The door of a clothes shop on the street suddenly opened. A man in a dark blue Taoist robe walked out with a 4-year-old child. Their attack was too fast and fierce. There was no time for others to react. The adult and child would die under their inner strength. Gong Sunyu didn't care. After all, he wasn't a citizen of Dajin. However, Liao Chen's expression changed. He couldn't withdraw his attack in time. He had no choice but to leap. Taoist Qingfeng looked up and saw Liao Chen charging at him. He frowned. Hey you! Before he could finish, a huge wave of inner strength attacked Liao Chen's body. Liao Chen's body stiffened and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Taoist Qingfeng's eyes darkened. He pushed Liao Chen away, but Gong Sunyu had already taken the opportunity to speed up and leave. You don't have to save me. I can handle it myself, Taoist Qingfeng said. I didn't save you. I saved him. Liao Chen looked at the 4-year-old child and said. The child looked up at Taoist Qingfeng, puzzled. Oh, Taoist Qingfeng said. Liao Chen leaned against the wall and slid down weakly. He smiled and said weakly, Oxnose, I'm afraid it's going to be as you wish. Can you promise me one thing? Go kill Gong Sunyu. All right, Taoist Qingfeng said. He said to the child, look after him. I'll be back soon. The child nodded obediently. Taoist Qingfeng used his Qinggong to chase after Gong Sunyu's horse. The southern city gate had been completely retaken by the Yin Kingdom. The Dark Shadow Division and the Black Wind Cavalry were arranging their troops on the city gate tower. Gong Sunyu lowered the visor of his helmet. He had no choice but to charge out. He gripped the reins in his hand tightly and pulled out a long needle. He stabbed it into the horse's buttocks. The horse screamed in pain and charged forward like a madman. Who's there? Stop. The soldiers guarding the city drew their long swords. Gong Sunyu killed the man with one strike. The title of Jin's most ferocious general was not undeserved. He galloped forward and charged through the heavily guarded city gate. What happened? Gu Jiao asked as she walked down the city gate tower. Someone just charged through, a soldier reported. Did you see who it was? Gu Jiao asked. The soldier shook his head. I didn't see clearly. I only know that he was wearing the Jin Army's armor. Jin Army. Gu Jiao looked at the man's back. Could it be Gong Sunyu? Boss. The Black Wind King raised his front hooves and galloped over. Gu Jiao mounted her horse and grabbed her red tasseled spear from Wenren Chong. She then chased after him without hesitation. If that man was really Gong Sunyu, then she must not let him return to the Jin nation alive. Gong Sunyu's internal injuries were very serious. He did not stop to kill Gu Jiao. 2 hours had passed. 4 hours had passed. The night came and the crescent moon climbed into the sky. Gu Jiao was still chasing after him. Although he was leading by quite a bit, his horse was not as fast as the Black Wind King. When they were about to reach the border city, the Black Wind King finally caught up. Gong Sunyu crossed the wooden bridge and cut it in half with his sword. However, the Black Wind King did not stop. It leaped over as if it had the help of the gods. The distance between them was closing. Gong Sunyu looked at the city and said, Open the city gate. On the city gate tower, a Jin army soldier said excitedly, It's the great general. The great general is back. Open the city gate quickly. Look. At the foot of the mountain about 3 miles away, there was a black mass of Black Wind cavalry. The cavalry of the Yin nation had arrived. They could not open the city gate. Their forces were all used to attack the Yin nation. If they really opened the city gate, they would not be able to hold on. Release the rope. The general guarding the city said. The Jin army released a long rope. Gong Sunyu endured the pain caused by his internal injuries. He gritted his teeth and used his Qinggong to leap up and grab one end of the rope. The general guarding the city hurriedly said, Quickly pull the general up. Everyone worked together to pull him up. The general guarding the city looked at the approaching Yin nation cavalry and said sternly, Archers, get ready. Fire. Following his order, countless arrows rained down, covering the sky and covering the earth. Whooshing sounds could be heard in the darkness of the night. Clang. An arrow hit Gu Jiao's shoulder but was blocked by her tough armor. Gu Jiao did not back down. She continued to gallop toward Gong Sunyu. When she was only a few dozen steps away from the city gate tower, Gong Sunyu was already halfway up. Since she did not know Qinggong, there was no way she could pull Gong Sunyu down. Gong Sunyu lowered his head and smiled mockingly at Gu Jiao. The new commander of the Black Wind Cavalry? You still can't kill me. The young man raised his head. His cheeks were still young, but his eyes were as calm as water. It was this calm gaze that made Gong Sun frown. For some reason, an ominous premonition flashed through his heart. Guess why I asked you to come back? The young man's horse galloped through the rain of arrows without hesitation. Impossible, he can't catch me. I have nothing to be afraid of. The young man raised the red-tasseled spear in his hand. Gong Sun heart skipped a beat. No. Goodbye, Gong Sun. The young man's red-tasseled spear shot toward him like a gust of wind. It carried the anger of the Xianyuan family for more than a decade, and carried the power of mountains and rivers. It pierced his heart without any explanation, nailing him to the city gate tower of Jin. Just one more step. Just one more step. I'm so close to home. But I can't go back. He looked at the young man in disbelief. He was terrifyingly calm under the rain of arrows. You're not the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry. You're not. Who exactly are you? Digression. This was the second night watch. I was afraid that it would make everyone uncomfortable, so I finished it all together. Looking at it this way, today was also the third night watch period. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1053405660. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 881. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are available here. The Jin soldiers on the city gate tower were dumbfounded by this sudden change. They suspected that their eyes were playing tricks on them. How was it possible for a lone cavalryman of great yen to penetrate through the rain of arrows, and with his own strength, pin their chief general to the top of the city wall with a single thrust of his spear? This was not real. The general's martial arts were unparalleled, and he was wearing an impenetrable armor. How could a Black Wind cavalryman hurt him? Soon they realized that this was not an injury, but a death. Gu Jiao's success was not a coincidence. Marquis Xianping pierced through Gong Sun's armor and injured him. Liao Chen used all his strength to perish together with Gong Sun, causing Gong Sun to suffer serious internal injuries. Of course, even under such circumstances, it was still very difficult to kill him in one strike. Gu Jiao's strength made the Jin soldiers tremble in fear. The general guarding the city gate lost his grip on the rope. He finally regained his senses and shouted, "General!" The general could no longer hear his shouts. The general who was guarding the city felt a strong sense of anger and sadness. The status of the Gongsun clan in Jin Nation was no less than that of the Xianyuan clan in Yan Nation. The old general had passed away, and Gong Sunyu, who was a rare talent, had become the soul of the entire border. However, Gong Sunyu had been shot to death by a Yan Kingdom cavalryman right under his nose. It was unacceptable. Gu Jiao calmly looked at the Jin soldiers who were in great sorrow. Was this unacceptable? Everything had just begun. The horn sounded, the war drums shook the sky, and the sound of horse hooves came. Under the ink-black night, the Black Wind cavalrymen and the Dark Shadow soldiers arrived at the city gate. Pu City was in chaos. Half of the soldiers were left to guard the south gate, while the rest chased Gu Jiao to the border between the two countries. They were not too far behind, which meant that the Black Wind King did not run at full speed. Their junior general had been following him at a distance, purposely letting Gong Sunyu return here. If the young commander could kill him with a single shot, he could do the same on the road. In fact, it was even safer. However, the junior commander did not choose to make a move on the road. Instead, he took the risk of being shot to death by the Jin army, and waited until the very last moment before Gong Sun Yu was dragged up the city gate tower before piercing through him with his spear. What kind of despairing death was this? This was a heavy blow to Gong Sun Yu and the entire Jin army at the border. But just as the young commander thought, everything was not over yet. The archers of the Black Wind Cavalry drew their bowstrings. Zhang Shiyong shouted, "Fire!" Hundreds of arrows shot towards Gong Sun Yu in a domineering manner. This arrow was for the Grand Marshal. The soldiers of the Dark Shadow Division also drew their bowstrings. General Pang ordered, "Fire!" This arrow was for the Great General. Wenren Cheng, Li Shun, and Zhao Dingfeng pulled their bows and knocked their arrows. This arrow was for Xian Yuancheng, for Xian Yuanzi, for all the soldiers who died in your hands. No, no. Great General. The roars of the Jin army general that was on the verge of collapse spread out from the city tower. Did the Xianyuan army also cry out like this in the past? Did they also beg Gong Sun Yu to stop? Did they also beg you not to treat Xianyuancheng like this? Thousands of arrows pierced through his heart. What Xianyuancheng did in the past, today's Gong Sun Yu would only receive more. Perhaps it was because they were too sad or too shocked, but the rain of arrows from the Jin army on the city tower stopped. Their cries echoed throughout the city, but Gu Jiao's expression did not change in the slightest. There was no pity, and no smugness after taking revenge. Her expression was calm from start to finish. This calmness was the greatest humiliation to the Jin army. The general's eyes were red as he pointed at Gu Jiao below the city tower. He screamed at the top of his lungs, "Kill him! Kill him! Avenge the great general! Chariots!" The rain of arrows might not be able to hurt you, but I don't believe that the rocks and crossbows from the chariots won't be able to pierce through you. The chariots and crossbows were far more powerful than swords and spears. No matter how hard the armor was, they could still break it. However, the moment the chariots and crossbows were pushed out, the siege weapons of the Yan kingdom arrived with the army. The leader was Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan fearlessly ran to Gu Jiao's side and entered the effective attack range of the Jin army. He glanced at Gong Sun Yu on the city tower and clicked his tongue. "You're indeed my brother." He was getting more and more used to his identity as a henchman. "Why are you here? Don't you need to attack the city?" She remembered that Tang Yueshan went to attack the North Gate with Marquis Xianping. Tang Yueshan said, "The North Gate has been breached. The Yan Kingdom's army is still fighting. Old Xiao went to the Ghost Mountain. I brought 10,000 men there to meet him. He only left 5,000 men behind and asked me to bring the rest back. He said they were going to chase after Gong Sun Yu." Gu Jiao rode on her horse and looked at the Jin army on the city tower. She said, "If that's the case, let's begin." Tang Yueshan glanced at her strangely. "You plan to?" Gu Jiao grunted. She said the most arrogant words in the calmest tone. "Let's attack the city now." The battle in Puqing lasted for a day and a night. Though Gong Sun Yu had given the order to retreat, the 4 city gates were blocked by the Yan army. They couldn't retreat even if they wanted to. Taoist Qing Feng returned to the street and pushed open the door of the shop. Liaochen was sitting on the ground in the lobby, leaning against a pillar. One of his legs was stretched out on the ground, the other was bent casually, and one hand was resting on his knee. A 4-year-old child was sleeping soundly in his arms. Hearing the footsteps, his long eyelashes fluttered. He opened his eyes and turned his head to look at Taoist Qing Feng, who was walking against the moonlight. His face was pale, and his lips were bloodless. Taoist Qing Feng's murderous intent faded away. He said nonchalantly, "I won't take advantage of others. I'll take your life when the battle is over." Liaochen coughed up a mouthful of blood. He wiped it away and smiled. "As you wish. You're badly hurt." Taoist Qing Feng frowned. He walked over and knelt down on one knee. "Give me your hand." Liaochen gave him his hand with a faint smile. Taoist Qing Feng felt his pulse. After a moment of silence, he took out a bottle of pills. "Take one." Liaochen glanced at the tight cork and said weakly, "I don't have the strength. Can you feed me?" Taoist Qing Feng frowned. He found this demonic monk annoying. But he still pulled out the cork, poured out a brown pill, and fed it to Liaochen. Liaochen chewed it and swallowed it. Taoist Qing Feng's hand, which was about to untie the water bag at his waist, paused. That was good. It would save him some trouble. The pill wouldn't take effect so quickly. Liaochen still leaned against the pillar after taking the pill. Thinking of the matter at hand, he asked, "Where's Gong Sunyu?" Taoist Qingfeng said, "Someone was faster than me." Liaochen asked, "That girl?" Taoist Qingfeng looked at him strangely. Liaochen opened his mouth. It slipped out of my mouth. You mean the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry is a woman?" Taoist Qingfeng fell into deep thought. He had never thought of this possibility. First, he hadn't met many women and lacked experience. Second, no one would have guessed that a woman could have such courage. Liaochen cleared his throat and awkwardly changed the topic. "How come you didn't go the wrong way this time?" He could understand why Liaochen didn't get lost chasing Gong Sunyu. After all, as long as he followed Gong Sunyu, he wouldn't get lost. But he came back alone. Taoist Qingfeng said, "I rode a horse." An old horse knows the way, and knows the way back. Liaochen was speechless. Gong Sunyu's death was a great blow to the Jin army. Their morale plummeted. They couldn't retreat even if they wanted to. The 20,000 men on Ghost Mountain were either captured or killed by Marquis Xianping and the 5,000 Yen soldiers. Chang Jing brought Zhu Zhongquang back. His face was full of resentment. Zhu Zhongquang knew his secret. He planned to kill Zhu Zhongquang to silence him, but Zhu Zhongquang surrendered. Marquis Xianping didn't kill surrendered soldiers. This was the rule set by Marquis Xianping. In the Battle of Pu City, the Jin army was ultimately defeated. About 60,000 men escaped from Pu City and returned to Jin Nation from another border city. At this time, Jin didn't know that their nightmare wasn't over. In the middle of the 10th month, the Gu army of Zhao would cross the Yan and reach the border of Jin. At the end of the 10th month, the Chun and Zhao armies would head west to Jin's Nine Jade Pass. Liang Guigang had suffered a loss and was injured. He didn't dare to act rashly. But the Turks in the north were dissatisfied with Jin. They would also join the ranks of the Jin army. Next, what awaited the Jin nation would be an unprecedented 5-nation punitive expedition. Pu City Lord Manor. Wang Man and the generals were reporting to the crown princess on the main seat about the war. The remnants of the Jin army in the city were arrested. The other city occupied by the Han family was also recaptured. The 4 sons of the Han family died in battle, and the rest were all captured. How are the casualties of the soldiers? Sheng Guanyin asked. It's much better than expected. Wang Man said truthfully. He was arrogant, but he didn't lie about the war results. This time, the casualty ratio was the smallest in the war he had experienced. On the one hand, the soldiers were really brave. On the other hand, he had to admit that the medical officer's superb medical skills saved the lives of many soldiers. Sheng Guanyin smiled and said, "About this, General Wang should be grateful to Commander Xiao. She was the one who took out the medicine and taught the medical officers how to treat external injuries." Hearing that it was that kid again, Wang Man snorted discontentedly. Sheng Guanyin didn't have time to argue with him. Qing had been unconscious for a few days. She had to see if he woke up. In fact, Sheng Guanqing had already woken up. He already knew who the man who carried him in the tunnel was. Thinking of the sentence, "Brother Qing will protect you. If there's wine, we'll drink together. If there's a girl, we'll sleep together," he couldn't help but roar 3 times on the spot. Knock, knock, knock. There was a soft knock on the door. "Qing, are you awake? I'm coming in." Sheng Guanqing was kneeling on the bed, pounding his small chest and roaring silently. Hearing the sound of the door being pushed open, he pulled the quilt over and covered himself. He knelt on the bed and curled his body into a ball. His head was covered. A pair of feet were still exposed. His feet moved arrogantly at first, and then little by little, they went back into the quilt. Marquis Xianping. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/1053199994. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 882. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. Marquis Xianping clutched his chest. A sentence ran through his mind. What should I do if my son is too cute? Xiaoheng was also cute when he was young. As he grew up, he became more and more serious. His old father rarely saw his adorable side. Especially now that he was married, he didn't even cooperate when he wanted to tease him. Marquis Xianping stepped into the room. He was a martial artist. He could tell if a person was awake by listening to their breathing. Moreover, Sheng Guanqing had contributed the most eye-catching acting skills in his life. Marquis Xianping had recovered from his initial nervousness and could face his son calmly. He cleared his throat and called out, "Qing-er." Sheng Guanqing's IQ defected collectively. "He's not here." Marquis Xianping was speechless. Marquis Xianping couldn't help but laugh. The thought of teasing his son came up, and he began to talk nonsense again. "Oh, isn't this Brother Qing? Didn't you say you would protect me, drink together, and go to the brothel together? You're going back on your word so quickly? Ah, stop talking. Brother Qing has such a dark history since he was born. You've seen it all." Marquis Xianping laughed until his shoulders were trembling. Sheng Guanqing, who was sweating under the quilt, heard his laughter and gritted his teeth in anger. "Don't laugh. Brother Qing's fist is very hard." Marquis Xianping stopped. After laughing enough, he cleared his throat and went to the bed to sit down on the edge of the bed. But seeing that his son obviously didn't know how to face him, he hesitated, took a step back, and pulled a chair over to sit down. This distance wasn't too distant, but it wasn't too close either. They were father and son by blood, but the 20 years of unfamiliarity and gap couldn't be crossed in an instant. They needed to get to know each other slowly. "Qing." Marquis Xianping called again. Sheng Guanqing didn't say anything. He had been bored inside for a long time. Marquis Xianping was afraid that he would be bored. He sighed and said to him, "Well, you rest first. I'm leaving. I'll come to see you later." Under the quilt, Sheng Guanqing was slightly stunned and pricked up his ears. He heard the sound of footsteps gradually fading away, and his mood began to become a little strange. Then he heard the sound of the door being closed. His heart suddenly felt empty. Did she really leave just like that? She didn't even try to coax her. He pouted, feeling a little wronged. He grew up without a father. He had been poisoned since he was a child. However, he had always thought that the other children were also poisoned, but he had never thought that the other children were fatherless. It was as if he knew from birth that every child should have a mother and a father. Once when they were eating, he suddenly asked his mother while holding his bowl, "Where's my father?" That year he was 5 years old. His mother didn't know how to answer him, and he never asked again. In the village, there were also children without fathers. Those children would often be bullied by their peers. He had also been bullied before. Of course he would bully them back. He didn't tell his mother. More than once, he had wondered if his father was dead or alive. If he died, how did he die? If he wasn't dead, why didn't he come looking for him? Did his father dislike him? Humph. She really didn't like him. She left so soon. "I don't want to like you either." Sheng Guanqing felt wronged and angry. He lifted the blanket with a swoosh. However, when he turned his head, he saw Marquis Xianping sitting on the chair intact. He didn't even move a toe. Marquis Xianping smiled and looked at him. There was an uncontrollable doting smile in his eyes. The displeasure in his heart instantly disappeared. Marquis Xianping tilted his head slightly and leaned forward. He moved closer to him and asked with a smile, "You don't want to like anyone either?" Sheng Guanqing choked and looked over. "Didn't you leave?" His tone was very calm. Marquis Xianping said, "Then I'll leave." Shang Guanqing put his hands on his hips and exploded. Let's see if you can walk. Marquis Xianping laughed uncontrollably. In fact, when his face was pulled down, he wasn't so embarrassed anymore. In addition, Shang Guanqing was deeply taught by Marquis Xianping, so the embarrassment only lasted for a moment. Wasn't it just having another father? What was the big deal? They were all men. Shang Guanqing calmed down and no longer felt ashamed of his actions and dark history. Let's talk, he said. Okay, let's talk. Marquis Xianping said with a smile. Shang Guanqing opened his mouth. He fainted. Where should he start? He wasn't mentally prepared at all. Before coming to the border, no one told him that he would pick up a father. Seeing his bitter and vengeful look, Marquis Xianping decided to speak first. Do you know your background? Shang Guanqing nodded faintly. And my mother told me. Marquis Xianping was not surprised. Shang Guanyin mentioned to him that Xiaoqing knew his background. She told you? He asked. This was nonsense. He was just trying to find a topic to talk about. Shang Guanqing grunted and raised his eyebrows. I told you my father is the Marquis of Zhao Country and my mother is the Princess of Zhao Country. There is also my poison and my younger brother, Xiaoheng. The reason why he mentioned Xiaoheng was because Xiaoheng was Shang Guanyan's flesh and blood. Shang Guanqing looked at him seriously. After the war, I'll take you to Zhao Country to see her. If you don't want to go to Zhao Country, I'll take her to Yan Country to see you. Let's talk about it later. Shang Guanqing waved his hand casually, looking uninterested. Thinking of something, he asked. Is my mother's son doing well? This mother was referring to Shang Guanyan, and the son was referring to Xiaoheng. Marquis Xianping said, Very well. Your mother has been raising him by her side and treating him as her own. She personally taught him to read and write. Shang Guanqing was dumbfounded. Can learn to read? Aren't you a general? Why doesn't he practice martial arts? Marquis Xianping said helplessly. Your mother doesn't like him to practice martial arts. She wants him to sit quietly in school and study. Fortunately, he didn't disappoint your mother's expectations. At the age of 13, he became a young chancellor, and at the age of 18, he became the youngest top scorer in Zhao Country. He's still the top scorer. Shang Guanqing secretly clenched his fists. Even if you give me 8 lifetimes, I won't be able to become the top scorer. He coughed lightly, raised his chin and sneered. Bookworm. Thinking of something, he suddenly crossed his arms and sneered. Wait until I see Bookworm. Let's see how I'll deal with him. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1053195991. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile reading website. Chapter 883. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. The novels that cannot be found online will all be available here. Shang Guanqing set his lofty goals and did not know in the slightest that his younger brother was actually a super black sesame stuffed glutinous rice ball. Thinking of how he bullied his younger brother until he cried, Shang Guanqing felt very cool. He began to hope that this day would quickly arrive. Marquis Xianping stayed in the room for a little under an hour. To say that there were no barriers between them in an instant, as if they had lived together for 20 years, that was impossible. But his son did not reject him. This allowed Marquis Xianping's heart to settle. He never worried about fighting, but he was filled with uncertainty about how to be a good father. He was a rough person, but Aheng was so smart and worked so hard. He recited poems that he did not understand and looked at him with admiration and expectation. How could he know how to match? But he did not want to admit defeat. Thus he could only use bravado to hide the unease in his heart. You're already so old, yet you don't even know how to ride a horse. You can't even pick up a knife. What's the point of reciting this? Finally, he saw pain and grief in the child's eyes. He was clearly so shameless, yet he could not let go of his pride in front of his son. He spent 19 years before finally saying to Xiao Heng, "My greatest pride in this life is not my military achievements or my title of nobility. It's you." He wouldn't make the same mistake with Xiao Qing. He just hoped that it was not too late. Their relationship as father and son was not too short. He still wanted to work hard to make up for the regrets of these years. The injury on your shoulder is fine, right? Sheng Guanqing asked with an indifferent expression. Cold on the outside but warm on the inside, he was the same as Aheng later on. Marquis Xianping swore to be a loving father, but he could not be serious for more than 3 seconds. Hearing his son care about him, his shoulder moved and he gasped. Covering his wound, he leaned over. Sheng Guanqing had completely fallen off the horse, however he did not know his own father's character. His expression immediately changed. Hey, how are you? Marquis Xianping said with a pained expression. It hurts? That dagger was poisoned. I fear I won't make it. But if you call me father, I might be able to save myself. Sheng Guanqing was speechless. Soon, it was time for dinner. In order to make it easier for Sheng Guanqing to rest, dinner was served in his room. On the table was his favorite meal, but there was no fennel. As he ate the rice in his bowl, he looked at his parents on both sides. All these years, there had always been only him and his mother at the dining table. In the past he didn't think much of it. But now that he thought about it, the imperial mausoleum seemed quite deserted. The situation in Pu City gradually stabilized, and there was no need for a large number of troops to be stationed there. Sheng Guanyin transferred the main forces to the border and launched a crusade against the Jin state. In just 3 days, Great Yan had conquered the first border city of Great Jin, and the army of Great Jin retreated to Shi City. The vanguard of the attack on Creek City was the Dark Shadow Division and Black Wind Cavalry. The moment the hour passed, Gu Jiao gave the order to launch the first wave of attack on Creek City. As usual, they used the chariots and ladders of the Liang Kingdom. The soldiers rammed the city gates and climbed the city towers at all costs. When one fell, the other rushed up. The sky of Creek City was dyed red with blood. Dogs, give me your lives. Tang Yueshan rushed to the city tower in a spurt of energy. The city gate was cracked open, and a group of men of sacrifice of the Jin state rushed out. These men of sacrifice were well trained and harder to deal with than ordinary soldiers. Soon, many of the Yin Kingdom's companions fell under their swords. Gu Jiao temporarily gave up on climbing the ladders and rushed to kill these men of sacrifice. They are more powerful than the men of sacrifice of the Liang Kingdom. No wonder the imperial court is supported by the sword hut. Gu Jiao fought back with all her strength. Her red-tasseled spear nailed Gong Sun Yu to the city tower. She used the silver spear she took from the Ghost Mountain, which was very hard and durable. But there were too many of them, and she was soon surrounded. She stabbed the men of sacrifice in front of her with her spear, and the men of sacrifice behind her chopped at her legs with their swords. There was no armor to protect her legs. Whoosh! An arrow hit the death warrior's chest. He screamed and fell down powerlessly. Gu Jiao looked back. Tang Yueshan had pulled the bowstring again. He stood high on the chariot and controlled the commanding position under the city tower. The marshal of the Zhao state's army was in full force. He said coldly, "I'm here to kill you." Gu Jiao nodded and left her back to Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan's arrows never missed. Under Tang Yueshan's cover, Gu Jiao successfully killed all the men of sacrifice. At the same time, the old duke came from behind. Tang Yueshan raised his eyebrows at him. "Old Gu, you're too late. We've killed them all." That was a blatant show-off. Look at your granddaughter. She's not close to you at all. She's more like a father-son soldier to me. What a tacit understanding. The old duke's face darkened. At the same time, Tang Yueshan, who had killed countless men of sacrifice, finally attracted the attention of the Jin army. Just as Tang Yueshan climbed the ladders to the city tower, the catapults launched an attack on him. The ladders were smashed in an instant. Tang Yueshan fell from high in the air, and the Tang bow on his back flew out. But it was not over yet. A Jin archer aimed at Tang Yueshan with his bow. The old duke planned to use his lightness skill to save him. Tang Yueshan yelled, "My bow! My bow! Save my bow!" The old duke staggered and almost choked to death. Fatty Tang. Was the bow more important or the person more important? But in fact, even if he caught Tang Yueshan, it would not help. The archer's attack could not be avoided. At the same time, Gu Jiao suddenly grabbed an arrow from a man of sacrifice, stepped on the chariot, and jumped up. The old duke looked at her, flew up, and landed at her feet. Gu Jiao stepped on the old duke's shoulder and had the strength to fly up. She grabbed the Tang bow with one hand and pulled the bowstring with the other. She shot the arrow through the Jin archer's chest. She did not know lightness skill, so sure Yi did not panic when falling rapidly. The Marquis caught Tang Yueshan and lashed out with his whip to catch the falling Gu Jiao. The three of them landed steadily on the chariot. Tang Yueshan breathed a long sigh of relief. He almost fell to his death. The old duke glanced at Tang Yueshan with disdain. Tang Yueshan said, "Old Gu, what's with your expression?" The old duke snorted. The three of them continued to kill the enemy. Tang Yueshan's bow could not play an advantage in close combat, but the old duke's whip was different. He was willing to take over the heavy responsibility of covering Gu Jiao, taking care of all the blind spots and dead angles. The two of them cooperated well, and were impeccable. Tang Yueshan frowned. Why do I feel that old Gu is showing off? Among all his grandsons, the old duke had only taken Gu Chongqing to battle. Gu Chongqing was his best grandson and the young master of the Gu army. Gu Chongqing had performed exceptionally well in every battle. But now, the old duke was in a trance as he looked at the young man who was bravely fighting forward and bathed in blood. It was as if he was leading Gu Chongqing to battle, leading the most dazzling and outstanding offspring of the Gu family to battle. A wave of heat rolled through his chest, and the blood in his body boiled uncontrollably. The sky gradually darkened. The young man's body was glowing with an inspiring power. Even the old duke, who had countless battlefield experience, had to admit that this was a hardy battle. Unfortunately, the two of them did not cooperate for long before an unexpected situation occurred. Gu Jiao had just rushed onto the Jin chariot and killed a Jin general when she slipped and fell. The old duke waved his whip to catch her. Unexpectedly, a tall figure rushed from behind, faster than his whip. He held Gu Jiao firmly with both hands and landed on the open space beside them. The other person lowered his helmet, revealing only a pair of familiar eyes. Gu Jiao blinked. Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing smiled and did not look back. He held her with one hand and stabbed his sword behind him, killing a Jin soldier who had sneaked up on him. "Yes, it's me," he said softly. He pulled back his sword and used his qinggong to carry Gu Jiao to the back of the camp. "You go back first. Leave this to me." Gu Jiao stood still and looked at him strangely. "Didn't you go to Zhao with old Master Meng?" Gu Chongqing said. "I went." The task of negotiating peace was completed. He did not need to stay in Zhao anymore, so he traveled day and night without stopping to the northwest border. There was a faint shade of black under his eyes, and his eyes were bloodshot from exhaustion. He touched Gu Jiao's helmet and said gently, "Go back and wait for me." Gu Jiao said, "Okay." Gu Chongqing returned to the battlefield with his sword. As he killed the enemy, he vaguely felt that the figure of the old general beside him was a little familiar. "Forget it. I'll kill them quickly and see my sister." The old duke was completely ignored. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. "Very good. You don't even recognize your grandfather." The morale of the soldiers of Yan Kingdom was high. They had nothing to worry about since they had won the battle in Shi City. Gu Jiao thought for a while, and went back to Ziyang City. It had been 5 days since Xianyuan Qi had taken the purple grass poison. She wanted to know how Xianyuan Qi was doing. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/10530106. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile reading website. Chapter 884. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all here. Gu Jiao and the Black Wind King traveled through the night and arrived at Xuyang City near dawn. Xuyang City was being rebuilt after the war, and the streets were already filled with people who came to help. Everyone had already remembered this little commander in red armor and black armor. Seeing her enter the city, they all saluted her. When she first arrived at Xuyang City, the people saw her and the Black Wind Cavalry as rebels and avoided them. But now their view changed a lot. Gu Jiao had urgent matters to attend to, so she didn't stay for long. She nodded slightly and rode her horse. Did the little commander just come back from another battle? She's covered in blood. Is she injured? So pitiful. The people were distressed. One of the city guards had to stand up and refute the rumors. Commander Xiao is fine. That's the enemy's blood. Don't worry, Commander Xiao is powerful. She will definitely finish all the battles safely. These words were a bit exaggerated. But after the war, there were many things waiting to be done. She indeed needed this kind of belief to strengthen herself. Hearing that the little commander was fine, the people were relieved and continued to do the work at hand. Their morale was higher than before. Xian Yuanqi was placed in the wounded barracks of the Black Wind Cavalry, and Yi Qingyi was guarding him. When Gu Jiao got off her horse and came to the entrance of the tent, Yi Qing had just come out with a pile of gauze that had been changed. When the curtain was lifted, Yi Qing saw Gu Jiao walking towards him. At this time, the stars and moon were hidden, the sun had not risen, and the sky was gray. The fiery red battle suit brought out a touch of absolute beauty under the faint sunlight. She pushed up the mask of her helmet, revealing a young and tender face. Just by looking at this face, it was hard to associate her with the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry, who killed enemies like flies. No matter how many people she killed or how many battles she fought, her eyes always retained the purest clarity. Of course she was calm enough. Yi Qing came back to his senses and greeted. You're back? I heard that you guys went to Jin Nation. How's the situation? Gu Jiao said, when I left, we were attacking Shi City. She did not say how the battle was going, but since she was able to come here, it meant that the situation at the front line was not difficult. Yi Qing put the gauze into a special basket nearby, turned around and asked Gu Jiao, Are you here to see the general? Gu Jiao nodded. How is he? Yi Qing sighed with a complicated expression. You know, after a person takes the purple grass poison, they will wake up at most 24 hours. If they don't wake up, then they are really dead. However, due to the unique toxicity of the purple grass poison, it can prevent the corpse from rotting for several months, so it looks like. Gu Jiao frowned. You mean he hasn't woken up yet? Yi Qing couldn't bear it and turned his back. Go in and see for yourself. I tried my best. Gu Jiao's heart sank, and she opened the curtain. As a result, she saw Xian Yuanqi sitting at the head of the bed, with one arm hanging around his neck, and the other arm raised, grabbing a big frozen pear and putting it into his mouth. He took a very big bite. Gu Jiao came in suddenly and was shocked by the scene in front of her. He also paused. He just stared straight at Gu Jiao. Under Gu Jiao's incomparably stunned gaze, he slowly completed his bite. Crack. Crunch. Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao took a deep breath, turned around, and left the tent. Beside the Black Wind King, Yi Qing covered his stomach, and for the first time in his life he couldn't stand up straight. Gu Jiao turned her wrist and said dangerously, Are you happy to be naughty? Yi Qing was usually not so naughty. He was a serious person. Today, even he didn't know what was going on, but he suddenly had the idea of teasing Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao decided to put Yi Qing in a gunny bag. However, Yi Qing probably looked at the almanac before going out today, and his luck was very good. Just as Gu Jiao was about to find the gunny bag, Marquis Xian Pingho came over. Marquis Xian Pingho came to find Gu Jiao. He wanted to know if Gu Jiao had a way to cure Shang Guanqing's poison. Gu Jiao fiercely stared at Yi Qing. Just you wait, I'll put you in a gunny bag next time. Wait a minute, I'll go in and see Xian Yuanqi. Gu Jiao said to Marquis Xian Pingho and entered the tent again. Xian Yuanqi had already eaten the frozen pear and fell asleep. This was one of the side effects of the purple grass poison in the early stage, drowsiness. Gu Jiao checked Xian Yuanqi and found that his internal injuries were much lighter than before. The broken meridians were also slowly healing, which meant that the purple grass poison was healing his body bit by bit. This was the first time that Gu Jiao had truly witnessed the miracle of the purple grass poison. Gu Chongqing didn't count. His purple grass poison had expired, and his recovery was all due to hypnosis. He still firmly believed that he had become a deaf warrior. Gu Jiao exclaimed, "The old injuries are also healing." This meant that once Xian Yuanqi recovered, he would no longer have to suffer the torture of internal injuries. He would become the same as a normal person, or even stronger than a normal person. He had really been reborn. Gu Jiao was very happy for Xian Yuanqi. Seeing that this bottle of medicine was contributed by Yi Qing, Gu Jiao decided to beat him lightly when putting him in a gunny bag. It was almost dawn. Seeing that his master had returned, Teacher who was so excited that his eyes were filled with tears. He hurriedly asked about his well-being and went to the kitchen to bring breakfast. Gu Jiao, Marquis Xian Pingho, and Yi Qing all went to the commander's tent. Gu Jiao had been away for a few days, and Teacher who had been cleaning carefully. It was very neat and tidy. The three of them sat around the small table, stepped on the cushions, and sat on the ground. Breakfast was millet porridge and steamed buns. The three of them quickly finished eating. Then Marquis Xian Pingho talked about Shang Guanqing's condition. "I heard that he doesn't have much time left." As he spoke, he glanced at Yi Qing on the side. "The people in your state preceptor's palace said that." Yi Qing already knew that Shang Guanqing had come to Ghost Mountain. He also vaguely guessed the relationship between this General Shao, who was personally appointed by the Crown Princess, and the Emperor's grandson. Not for anything else, but for this face that was somewhat similar to the Emperor's grandson. Of course, there was also the way the Crown Princess looked at him inadvertently. He hesitated for a moment and sighed. "It is indeed what my master said. The poison in His Highness Chongsun is very powerful. It can only be suppressed for 20 years. It can't be more than that." Now it was already October, and there were only 2 months left before the 20-year period. Marquis Xian Pingho asked, "Is it accurate to his birthday?" Yi Qing shook his head. "No, there is a certain error. It will only be brought forward, not delayed." The last sentence poured cold water on Marquis Xian Pingho's heart. Marquis Xian Pingho still held the last glimmer of hope and said, "But he looks no different from a normal person. He didn't look like he was about to die of poison." Yi Qing sighed. "It's the elixir refined by my master that has been suppressing his toxicity. He won't be in too much pain when he dies." This time he really wasn't being naughty. The Emperor's grandson's poison was really powerless. Marquis Xian Pingho's eyes fell on Gu Jiao's face. "Do you have a way?" Gu Jiao said, "I'm not good at detoxification. I sent a pigeon back to Chengdu a few days ago. There should be a reply from Madame Nan soon." Speak of the devil. The spy of the Black Wind Camp came over with a carrier pigeon from Xuyang City. "Young commander, there is a carrier pigeon flying back from Chengdu." "Bring it in," Gu Jiao said. The spy presented the carrier pigeon. Gu Jiao took off the note tied to the pigeon's leg, and took the carrier pigeon out to the spy. After reading the note, Gu Jiao lowered her eyes. "Madame Nan said that she can't detoxify this kind of poison." Yi Qing asked, "Is the Madame Nan you mentioned a member of the Tang sect?" Gu Jiao said, "Yes." Yi Qing sighed. "Then it is indeed impossible to detoxify it." My master personally went to the Tang sect to ask for medicine, but the result was that he returned without success. A poison that even the Tang sect couldn't detoxify was basically hopeless. Gu Jiao frowned. Could it be That there is really no way? Gu Jiao looked at the large pile of bottles and jars on the table. One of them was the anti-inflammatory medicine that had just been taken out from the small medicine box. It was prepared for Xian Yuanqi. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. Purple grass. Yi Qing was stunned. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully. Purple grass poison is the strongest poison in the world. After taking it, there is an 80% to 90% chance of death. But if one survives, all injuries can be cured without medicine. Yi Qing said with a solemn expression. But, so far, no one with a weak body has survived. Take 5th grandfather Han for example. His physique was not weak, and he was a martial artist. There was no need to mention Xian Yuanqi. They first had a very strong physique, which produced a higher survival rate than ordinary people. The imperial grandson couldn't do it. Gu Jiao said. How do you know if you don't try? If by that day, you still can't find a way to cure him, then purple grass poison is the only hope. I agree, Xian Pingho said. Yi Qing simply didn't know what to say. The poison of purple grass was too overbearing. It really wasn't something that anyone could survive. Besides, we don't have any more purple grass poison in our hands. The last bottle of purple grass poison was fed to Xian Yuanqi by his own initiative. Gu Jiao stood up. The Han family has purple grass garden. Teacher Hu, send someone to the prison and bring 3rd grandfather Han to me. In the Han family, 3rd grandfather Han was the most spineless. The Han family was originally locked up in the prison of Ziyang City. Teacher Hu moved very quickly and soon brought 3rd grandfather Han over. 3rd grandfather Han was really easily frightened. Gu Jiao didn't even torture him, and he already confessed. Purple grass. Purple grass. Is it the kind of grass that? It smells colorless and tasteless, but will die when eaten. He knelt on the ground, trembling in fear. Xian Pingho's eyes were cold. Gu Jiao was full of killing intent. He was even stuttering when he breathed. Yi Qing took out a pen and paper and drew a purple grass. 3rd grandfather Han was very stupid and couldn't recognize it just by looking at the outline. Yi Qing gave him a look and 3rd grandfather Han suddenly realized. I've seen it before. I've seen it before. He said in a trembling voice. Our Han family found a purple grass in Niu County. We surrounded it and built a village. But the village is gone. The purple grass inside might also be gone. Yi Qing's face changed. What did you say? 3rd grandfather Han choked. The village was burned. When we were about to lose. My eldest brother said something. Didn't want the black brave cavalry to fall into your hands. So he sent people to the village and destroyed the purple grass garden. 3rd grandfather Han's words were like a bolt from the blue to everyone. No one expected that just when they were about to save Sheng Guanqing, the Han family would personally destroy all their hopes. Xian Pingho's face was frighteningly cold. His killing intent was about to overflow the entire tent. 3rd grandfather Han was so scared by this terrifying killing intent that he fainted. Xian Pingho didn't get angry easily, but right now he crushed the cup in his hand. The broken porcelain pieces pierced his palm. He couldn't tell whether it was his hand or his heart that hurt more. He only saw his son after 20 years, but he only had 2 months left to live. Chang Jing didn't know what happened in the tent. He had just come from Puching. He beat Zhu Zhongquang until he cried for his parents and swore to never reveal his identity. The girl in the soft fragrance pavilion said that a man's mouth was a liar. He wasn't so easily fooled. He fed Zhu Zhongquang poison. If Zhu Zhongquang dared to betray him, he would let Zhu Zhongquang die from the poison. Zhu Zhongquang was really honest now. His little disguise was saved. He didn't need to be captured back to Shadow Island. Chang Jing was very happy. But when he came in, he found that everyone was unhappy. If he didn't understand, he would ask. He asked, "What happened to you?" Xian Pingho was so angry that he couldn't speak. Gu Jiao didn't say anything either. The gentle and patient eldest disciple of the state preceptor hall, Yi Qing, said helplessly, "We're looking for a kind of purple grass. Unfortunately, we can't find it anymore." What purple grass? Chang Jing's gaze fell on Yi Qing's painting. Isn't this kind of purple grass everywhere? Yiqing choked. Everywhere. Changjing said. There's a lot in the back mountain of my house. It's all over the hillside. Everyone turned to look at him. Changjing, who had clearly resolved the crisis of his little disguise, suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. Digression. Xianping Ho, master of the Dark Night Gate, your son has been kidnapped. Quickly bring out the purple grass to redeem him, otherwise he will be killed. Master of the Dark Night Gate. My son is only worth a few blades of grass? You're joking. Xianping Ho, plus 100,000 taels of gold. Master of the Dark Night Gate. Okay, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels to read for free. All the novels that can't be found online are here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1052996115. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile version reading website. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.